I'm sorry I'm late.
Right on time.
Are you all there? Who is 12154? Who is it?
It's Rob. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. How are you?
I'm okay. How's your husband feeling?
Oh, thank you. Good. It was no big deal at the end of the day, but a lot of stitches.
Oh, no. Anytime stitches involved, it's not good. Yeah. But I'm glad that he's okay. I was really worried when you, yeah.
Yesterday, so that everybody knows, yesterday during the business license meeting, my husband fell in the stairs. And this was like very spectacular and very scary. And so we went to the emergency room, and thanks God there was no concussion, but he had a lot of stitches, and that's what happened. Anyway, do we have, Janine, do we have a quorum?
Doesn't look like it.
We'll check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need one more person.
One more person, okay. And we are hoping that Lowell is going to join us at a point of time for a little thank you ceremony. Maybe I can start by introducing all the administrative stuff. As you all know, we are doing this meeting on Zoom by a recommendation of the city. And the way we do the Zoom meeting is we bring the person who presents in the room, and they do their presentation. The committee asks questions, then we turn to the public. The public can raise their hands by the raise hand signal, and then we wrap it with a business session where we make resolution and vote on the resolution, and then the resolution are presented to the full board at the next full board meeting, which, Janine, when is that full board meeting?
January 5th, I believe it is. Let me double check.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
Wednesday.
So that's the way it generally goes. And we have today, we have, everybody has seen the agenda. You have the agenda in front of you, more or less. We have a
Lola's here. We don't have quorum, but Lola's here.
Where is it?
Maybe we can count him.
Oh, here, Lowell. Hello, Lowell.
Okay, we have just enough for quorum, so we're good.
Oh, good. So we can start with Lowell anyway. Yeah. So Lowell, thank you. Thank you for attending the transportation meeting. We thought that in addition to what was done at the full board, we wanted to give you some special thanks for your efforts on the tow pound. And I'm going to turn for 1 second to Dale and Jeffrey to give a little speech, and then I wrap up.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah. I mean, not only are we thrilled with your leadership on the tow pound, but we are very grateful for your support over these years in giving us the birth to pursue our radical agenda of safe and equitable streets and sidewalks and transportation modes in the district. So thank you very much, Lowell, for being a supportive chair.
Thank you, Dale.
28 years, Lowell, that's how long the tow pound was supposed to move, right?
From 1998.
Okay.
From the time the act was signed. So 22 years, 23 years.
All right, and you became chair in 2019.
Yep.
And suddenly the tow pound moved.
Right.
And now we have an amazing 5.5 acre open space on Pier 76 in-house kitchen where there's never been open space before. So I want to kick it back to Madame Berthet for a bit of a gift. So thank you again for all that great work.
So we thought it would be appropriate. We thought it would be appropriate that we we buy you a very real tow truck just for you.
Wow. Thank you, guys.
And then you can keep it with your memorabilia on the shelf.
And you can turn it into a planter.
Right. This is it. This is our gift. And no, seriously, we really want to thank you, because this was just an amazing project, an amazing accomplishment. And I mean, nobody thought you were serious when you say, I'm getting the tow pound done. We said, well, okay, he's a little full of himself, I don't think he's going to do that. And here we go, it's gone.
Go warn the people, Christine, go warn the people at the heliport.
Right, yeah, next. That's Jeffrey. Jeffrey is going to have to do the heliport to compare.
I will be leaning on Lowell for that as well, for sure.
And we'll offer him a little helicopter at the end, right?
We're all on that case.
Right.
All right.
So, Lowell, thank you so much. And you'll receive this by mail or by other ways.
What is that toy? I love that Tonka toy. What is that?
It's a tow truck, David.
I love it.
Look at that.
Yeah, I know that, but
Goes
for the
down
pound?
and up. Very exciting.
That's an old one, though. That's from the 70s.
Is it?
Well, that's when there was a tow pound.
I collect toy trucks and cars, so I mean, oddly enough, but you believe it.
David, we should have consulted with you, but we did our best.
Just make sure
that's
there's a
great.
little paint
I love
on there.
You did
Guys,
better than the best, because that is phenomenal.
That actually
Worth
David,
something.
David, that actually works, because if that's a 1970s tow truck, that's when there was a tow pound.
Right. So no, I mean,
left.
that is perfect. I mean, that is actually probably a collector's item. I don't know how you got that, but
Just test
Anyway,
it
we
with
thought we
paint.
should have a little fun with you.
If Christine, if I could take 2 seconds to say thank you to you and to Dale, Jeffrey as well, but to you and to Dale for running this committee so well. Dale referenced the fact that, I let you guys pursue your agenda. That's the way I saw my role as chair, was to, I have experts in various fields that, run these committees. And my job as chair was to make you able to do your jobs and pursue what you needed to pursue. And you guys did an amazing job with that. So thank you for all your efforts. You made me look good. So thanks again.
Thank you, Lowell. Really appreciate you popped up.
So what's on the agenda for tonight?
Oh, lots of good stuff.
Well, we're going to start with the lighting for the High Line, and then DOT is going to present 35th Street changes and City Bike, and then we have a Dashmart discussion for bicycle deliveries.
Okay, I
And,
think let's stick around and listen to the Highline piece. Then.
Regulation and snow events and DSNY. And possibly what is it that Sarah wanted to talk about?
Always scaffolding.
Scaffolding, one of our favorite subjects too.
And we have some parking reg
Yes.
proposals for 53rd.
Okay, all right. So let me turn the meeting to ESD. Thank you so much for coming back and talking with us and showing us the latest plan for the illumination under the High Line, under the extension of the High Line, I should say, from 10th Avenue to 30th on 30th Street, going up to Dyer Avenue.
Yep. Would you like me to take it away, Christine?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me back My name is Douglas Carr. I'm with the Highline Project Team. I'm also joined by Annabelle Frias from ESD, Community Affairs, and also Isabel Castilla, who is one of our design partners. And we are here to provide you some update regarding the Highline Moynihan Connector project. So maybe I'll take it as a appropriate segue to congratulations to this group on Pier 76, another state. So we're here to talk about another state initiative for some improvements in the neighborhood, kind of building on that work. So we're happy to present here today some feedback and improvements that we've made given the feedback from our original presentation in October 26th of this year. We're not going to spend as much time on the upper portions of the Highline. We're going to kind of zero in on the areas that we kind of generated the most discussion last time. And, you know, if helpful or necessary, I'm happy to go back to the upper improvements, but we've really kind of focused this to kind of be efficient with the agenda here on the areas that we've, you know, really spent the most time on. And, you know, we're happy to present the evolution of the design and hopefully, you know, it's responsive to some of the comments that we interpreted last time. So we can move ahead on the
present as is. I mean, your latest version of the design.
Yes, I think Janine is helping me with these slides today, so she can go on to the next slide. So from our previous presentation, this was, you know, a concept rendering, you know, fairly true and accurate to form. You know, I do want to make sure that we understand and provide some context that, you know, these are renderings and, you know, we wouldn't necessarily share them if we don't believe that this is, you know, representative, but, you know, there are, you know, some details that, you know, certainly won't come through. So this is where we were back in October 26th. We discussed, you know, some of the lighting. The Highline extension will extend eastward on 30th Street on the section that you're looking now, northward across Dyer, connecting in to the Manhattan West Plaza. Clearly not lost on this group, certainly. A very poor transit and pedestrian connection at the moment, you know, fairly, you know, dangerous and congested. And we think the Highline as a whole is representing kind of, you know, significant improvement to the connections in and around this area. We focused our efforts with respect to this group, specifically on this section, the 30th Street. You know, some of the feedback we took last time was, you know, there was a coldness, there was kind of a harshness, a lack of vibrancy and even just greenery on the lower level. The last time we did outline some constraints, but to kind of provide some of that context again, you know, given the limitations and constraints in the streets with the project, including utilities, subsurface utilities, lack of light in this area, the traffic needs, and also in collaboration with the agencies that we've been working very closely with, including DOT, the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, and New York City Parks. We have, you know, gone back to the drawing board and come up with, you know, what we're proposing in the next slide here. So the next slide, you know, some of this was the concern to address the greenery. As I mentioned previously, and we're happy to, you know, discuss a little bit, you know, I think physical limitations, you know, the idea of trees, I think, was discussed, but, you know, given the utilities in the subsurface, the low canopy that we have given on the elevated walkway surface, and the lack of light, you know, this area will not support, you know, lush mature plantings. So we started to, you know, pivot to another direction to see kind of what could we include, something that was, you know, a flexible solution that would enhance the experience along here and also provide a level of flexibility as this connection and the street level experience evolves over time to also include future improvements connected with the Port Authority bus terminal improvements and renovations, which will have an impact on the existing curb that we will have in day one. So the solution that we've come up with is planters We also understood that there was a request and kind of a general programmatic initiative for, integrated lighting and something to kind of give it in kind of an architectural perspective. So we specifically have looked at planters with integrated lighting solutions. There's a couple different options that, we've been able to discuss with manufacturers and sourcing of this. Some of them are rim accent lighting planters, and some of them are kind of under lighting planters that will provide a glow to these, particularly at night. We can move on to slide number 2. We have worked in terms of the optionality of some of these planters. Some of them may be weathering steel, which would be consistent with the architectural treatments of the Highline connector above, which is using a similar weathering steel, a Core 10 steel. So that is an option that we're pursuing for kind of some harmony and connectivity between the lower elements and the structural elements. But, there's also other options in terms of other types of planters that we looked at. All of them could be included with the integrated accent lighting. The next slide. So these are going to, propose as large scale circular planters. We would vary the size of the planters, which could also vary the types of plantings. We envisioned, with the help of James Corner Fields, the ability to include kind of large and small will give a little bit of diversity and variety along the way, along the path. We've also shared this and carefully coordinated this with the Port Authority. And if you can switch to the next slide of what the day 2 condition. So as we are planning, we also understood from the Port Authority their day 2 improvements for their Port Authority land. The connector, as a reminder, is being built on and over Port Authority land. So we have done this in a way that's compatible with current iterations of the Port Authority reconfiguration to support the Port Authority bus terminal. So I think importantly, this solution is flexible enough where these planters can move if and as necessary with the future reconfiguration of the Port Authority layouts and design. We can go to the next slide. A little bit more in terms of the ones. So we've gotten as far as, speccing, certain information regarding the planters and kind of vetting the vendors, fabricators, and quality of these planters. And as I mentioned, it can come in various materials. They will also, come available with an integrated water tank to minimize, effort and maintenance for these planters. And then we can go to option 2, next slide. These are, still using steel, different material, different treatment for a visual aspect, but regardless of which version we can go, we have looked, into kind of an integrated water tank, which would ease, make the overall plant maintenance more manageable. Next slide. This is a little bit more on the lighting and some of the options. On the right, option 1 you can see is kind of integrated at the rim. There are options where we can incorporate uplighting into some of the plantings, and option 2, LED strips at the bottom of the rims and inclusive of uplighting in the planters as well. Go to the next slide. And I believe actually that's, I believe that is our final slide. So we're happy to entertain any questions or comments or any discussion.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. So member of the committees, what's David has his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, my first reaction is, these look like some great options, but I'm not sure what's the, what options I don't really know how to evaluate it because I don't know what options you're going to choose, or, you know, how many of the planters are going to actually have this lighting or that. I mean, you've just kind of given us a list of possibilities, but I think we're looking for a design to know what you're actually going to do.
Understood. That's where we're at, David, in terms of our design. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a specific question in there. Is it which option do we prefer, or do all of them come with lighting? Or I'm not sure. I think the answers to both of those are, the answer is yes, all of them can be integrated with lighting. I think we are deciding as a project team, I think we're probably leaning towards an architectural similarity on the weathering steel and the core 10 option, but we wanted to convey that there is optionality.
Yeah, I mean, I think so the upper is all Corten steel. So, I mean, I think it'd be fine to have it be Corten steel, but are you planning all of those? Or will all of the planters have lighting in them? I guess is that?
Yes, that is our intention.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a fair amount of questions. Could you go back to the beginning, show the meaning, the beginning again? Yeah, and show the next one, next. Okay, so the first thing you said is we have to take into account the traffic needs for the lighting. So bottom line, what I'm saying is that the lighting issue has not been addressed to my understanding. There is no traffic needs for lighting because today you have lights on that segment on both sides, on Dyer Avenue and on 30th Street, which is satisfactory. So there is no need in the middle to add lights to resolve a problem we don't have.
I think on that, Christine, those lights, the existing DOT lighting is in conflict with the structure, and those lights will be removed.
No, they are on each side of the they are on the south side of the street, on 30th Street, so there is no conflict on that.
Yep, we will be updating those lights in coordination with the repeat, correct?
Yep. For all of 30th Street, right? And then for Dyer, they are going to be on the north sidewalk.
What these lights are doing is these lights are providing, these are the DOT specified fixtures. We spent a lot of time coordinating.
But we don't need the DOT for that because there is not a requirement.
We do need that.
It's a pedestrian walkway.
No, it's providing street lighting on the north and the south.
Why does it provide pedestrian lighting when we can install normal poles on the north side? And we have normal poles on the north side right now. We have on Dyer Avenue, and by the way, that's not DOT because it's Dyer Avenue on the north, right? So it's
they currently maintain those on behalf of the Port Authority.
Maybe, but on the north side, you already have vehicular lighting. So this is not the project. The project is about pedestrian lighting. And, you know, I don't understand why this whole project is going to be done with lights for cars when the cars already have their lights.
So the future development of the parcels to the north will result in the removal of the north lighting on 30th. DOT has requested that these lights effectively replace those ones that are being lost. So that's what has been coordinated.
We can't have a pedestrian sidewalk which is really lit like a highway. And that's what we have here. And we are going to say, we said it last time, we are saying it again, it's not acceptable. So if DOT wants more lights, they have to find a different place to put it. They have to find the sidewalk, or they have to put more on the south side. But this area is supposed to have a lighting which is for pedestrians, not for cars. And all the lighting that you are showing on those planters, nobody's going to see them. The power of the light you are putting up here is overwhelming. So we need
the current poles, Christine, are in the median.
I'm sorry?
And those poles, the current poles that I believe you're referencing are currently in the meeting, and they are slated for removal.
And then we should
This
install more.
This
on
is the
south.
replacement of that, and per coordination and request of DOT, this is what their request has been, what their.
Why are you, if the median, why don't you put more on the south side?
We are providing that on the south side as well.
How many are you providing?
I would have to confirm and get back to you on that, unless, I'm not sure, Isabel, you may have that current number.
I don't have it off the top of my head, but let me, if we can continue with the conversation, I can get you an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Conversation is essentially, we need to have a meeting with DOT to discuss that, because that is not an acceptable lighting for pedestrians.
Good.
It's not a median of a highway. This is not, I mean, you know, this is not what we're looking for. This is a pedestrian way. So somebody has to be creative here and go figure where to put the highway. And by the way, it's not a highway, it's a street on one side. And I don't know why we need those lights.
Could we go to the plan, and because I'm really confused about the existing lighting and what's being removed, and could we go to the plan and have somebody point to exactly what you guys are talking about?
We don't have a plan with the existing lighting, right?
No, we do not have that.
No, but on this plan, can you now say, okay, we have lights over here and these are being removed, or these are being added to, and now we have lights over here that are being removed? Can you, even just by pointing, so it's completely clear what
you can go to the previous plan. I think it's going to be a little bit clearer. So currently there's a number of street light posts that are basically located more or less in between the columns. So I cannot mark right now, but if you see the squares, there's a series of light posts that illuminate the roadway that are located currently between those squares. So the proposed connector bridge.
The squares being the columns, is that correct?
The columns, yeah. I cannot annotate, so I apologize. I'm trying to describe it in the best way possible. But that's where the current light posts are located that illuminate the streets, both Dyer Avenue and 30th Street. By locating the connector above, we need to substitute those lights with something equivalent, which are the lights being shown on the rendering situated underneath the bridge.
And are those lights supposed to be lighting Dyer Avenue as well as the pedestrian way under?
They're supposed to be illuminating Dyer Avenue, 30th Street, and the pedestrian way. All of them.
So those down lights are intended to illuminate the street Dyer Avenue?
Yes.
So the lights have a lens that actually angles them out to Dyer Avenue. So what ends up happening is you end up getting higher light levels on the street, which meet all of the vehicle requirements, and lower light levels on the sidewalk due to that angling of the light.
So the fixtures are baffled, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So then it's not going to look like the rendering, because the rendering just shows a simple downlight going straight down. There's no baffling shown in that rendering.
I think that's potentially the limitation of the rendering, and that detail is being lost in the rendering, but the description is accurate.
That's a pretty big difference. I mean, I had no idea that you were trying to direct that light towards the street.
Can you show us back the drawing with the lights?
Can you also make it full screen, please?
Where do we show the lights?
I think it's the previous page 3, I believe.
That one.
Right. So you see, as far as I'm concerned, if you want light for the cars, you can install them on this vertical part of the High Line.
When
What are you suggesting, Christine? The vertical parts? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, if you take like the part of the High Line which is supporting the
sort of trestle there, the flying trestle that's coming out from the base of the structure, and then the Corten angle along the side, right, Christine? Is that what you're kind of referring to?
Yeah. So
Okay,
if that's what you want, if you want light,
no, I think I understand. That
you
that
want
is
light
not
on the street, you put them there on the street. And you
Okay,
put the light in the under it for the pedestrians.
okay. I think our design team and our lighting designers, who are not here today, that's not consistent with the design intent of the structure itself. Is to be hanging, the point of integration. We thought is aesthetically a better treatment, and we are not looking to be hanging jutting structures off an intentional kind of.
I'm not suggesting giant structures. You can have just a head of light, which is attached here, just like we have a head of light attached to buildings.
Yeah, if I can, do you mind if I jump in, Christine?
Yeah.
I mean, I see, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill is a incredibly renowned design firm. And of course, I'm sure they're going to say they don't want their design of the Highline extension affected by a DOT street light requirement. But what they're creating underneath the Highline is the opposite of really what we're looking for. And I don't see why the pushback wouldn't come from the state actually to the designers to say, well, you actually need to incorporate the lighting on the side of the structure so we can have a good pedestrian experience underneath the structure. Cars create the problem here. So the designer needs to work that into sort of the landscape on the whole. And those angled trusses seem to be a perfect way to potentially do that.
I mean, just, throwing my 2 cents in as a designer, I'm sympathetic to the idea of not having to put them on the angled brackets. However, it does seem to me the beams, the horizontal beams, meaning the space between those brackets.
That's what I thought. Yes.
Far more conducive to lighting the street than the downlights underneath, and would not detract from the structure if they were centered between those angled brackets. They would look very natural. They'd look very natural in there. So
I agree, David.
I don't see a design problem with doing that. Yes, on the angled brackets, they would look awkward.
I think David, just I think the counterpoint to that is this is not a typical steel member. That is not, it's a specifically selected for its material, for its the weathering quality of it. Like that is.
No, I know what Corten steel. I know what it is.
Exactly. So that is what the design is, and that's what the intent is. So the suggestions would undermine the design intent of the structure.
You mean that the lighting would not be Corten steel? Is that what you're saying?
It would interrupt the intentional use of Corten steel there, and it would not be an integrated design element. It would be an additive layer design element, which is not consistent with the design intent.
Yeah, but if the design element, which should have been incorporating pedestrian under, has never done that, you guys need to go back to the drawing board. From day first, we told you the design does not take into account what happens under. And that has been the deficiency in this design. So now we've got to find a way to fix it. We've got to find, there are so many designers, we've got to find a way to fix it.
So I can appreciate that, Christine. I do think, to underscore what the project is doing, I don't want that to be lost in here. And it seems like at times it does. This represents a giant improvement in the neighborhood. And there's 2 areas where you're providing the pedestrian improvement. There is a lot of focus, obviously, on the upper portions. We have refocused our efforts on the lower portions. But, I think last time and today, I think, we're confident that this is a very substantial improvement in the neighborhood and for the pedestrian flow.
No, but
above and below the structure.
Yeah,
below it.
Sorry, we live here, so we know what's an improvement for the neighborhood. Viren, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, no, I just want to sort of chime in a little bit. There's a couple of things here. The question of materiality is something that Douglas is sort of raising, which is kind of valid in more ways than one. The reason I'm just going to try and see if I can explain that, and I'm sure everyone understands. The moment you start putting lighting on the brackets or between the brackets, you have the conduits, you have other materials showing up. And that might become a visual sort of, what do you call it, anomaly that we might not like. So it might sound okay in principle, in theory rather, but it might actually create an aesthetic problem that we are not seeing very clearly. So I agree with sort of, Christine, your contention about, why it should be rethought. And I think, Douglas, the recommendation is going back to the drawing board, checking back with the architects. They're really good at this. And your lighting designers is a very good suggestion, but trying to find a solution in this committee is not the way to sort of do it, because yes, there is a larger issue of materiality, its expression, and how it, both in terms of even light sort of glaring at you versus lights that are hidden between the trusses. So that's the kind of thing that you really want to negotiate here very well. I hope I'm making sense.
Well, I'm not sure. So
I understand.
What's your bottom line?
The bottom line is that it's not just 1, 2, and 3 kind of a solution that, okay, put the lighting between the brackets, because there are other materials.
I'm just making recommendations. I'm saying there are options here, and I think the architect need to do it. What I am concerned is that I'm hearing from ESD that there is no interest in pursuing that. And I think that is the thing that I want to challenge. There has to be interest in doing that.
No, Christine, I'm not sure that that's what we're conveying. So if that's coming across, I think, us being here, we have responded, we've tried to respond. In committees like this, I'm not sure that, we can probably address every single need because there are competing needs.
Yeah, but the light was the biggest need we expressed to you last time.
I think the most vocal person last time was the greenery. That was what was.
Oh, you had me talking about the greenery and me talking about the lights.
Oh, the light.
So
The lighting. Can I jump in for one more? Let me just jump in and point out one thing about the light. The lighting was a big issue last time, but anyway, this view that we're looking at would not have any of those lights on the side. We're only talking about the other side, because this side, the street is lit by the street lights, the conventional street lights, right? If I'm understanding this correctly.
No, that's what they are saying, is that some of the street lights that were lighting
on the south side, the street lights on the south side are taking care of the problem.
David, you have to let me finish. If they are saying that there are lights on the north and the south, but there were also a bunch of lights in the middle, and I have to go back and check it out. I'm sure they know, but I don't know whether there was, by the way, 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights. I mean, how many lights are we talking about? That may be only 2 lights, and that's not, because this is a half block, and typically a half block has about 2 lights. So what they are saying is that those 2 lights are disappearing and they have to be replaced by something, and this is what they are doing.
And if I can answer that question, currently between 10th Avenue and Dyer Avenue, on the median, there's 2 cover lights and 2 lamp posts, and each one has 2 cover lights. So we have 4, some pointing to Dyer Avenue, some pointing to 30th Street.
Right.
Because the bridge is going on top of that area, we need to replace those lights. In addition to that, there's going to be 2 additional cover lights installed on the south side along the 30th Street sidewalk, which was a question you posed a couple of minutes ago.
Right.
So I guess my question then, if you're adding more lights to the south side, would you need any of those lights on the side of this structure? In other words, is 30th Street going to be sufficiently lit already? And then the only issue is the Dyer side.
It's not, unfortunately, the photometric, to be able to meet the light levels that the DOT requires, the lights installed on the south side of the sidewalk are not sufficient. So we still need these lights to point both to 30th Street and Dyer Avenue.
What this also helps with is that uniformity of lighting, which is what the conversation extensively has been with DOT, I think to Isabel's point. This also helps with the uniformity and consistency of lighting.
Christine, I have a sort of side question to this. Del, can I just one quickly? What I was saying is, would you rather not see any lighting, meaning the structure being used for any lighting, and any side any street lighting that you need, DOT needs, should be independent of the structure and not on the structure? Would that be something that we can very clearly tell them?
But on the side of the structure?
Sorry?
Independent, I believe, was the point.
Oh, independent, but independent means they would be, anyway, yeah. I tell you, I don't want to make a recommendation. What I want to say is that the light which is over the pedestrian way should not be a street light. That's it. Because what you are creating there is an incredibly, I mean, unless we can see a true representation of that light with the baffle, right? And see how much is coming down and how much is going on the sides. And maybe we don't have a problem. But, and then unless we see a true representation of that, you know, the representation we have shows a very, very highway. It looks like a parking lot. It looks like, you know, a stop on the highway with all the trucks. It looks like a horrible place.
I respectfully disagree with that, but I think you're entitled to your.
I'm telling you my impressions.
No, that's.
Can I please jump in?
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Please. Okay. And I think I might be directing this to Isabel. These lights, at what height off the sidewalk are they?
Currently, the bottom of the structure is approximately 17 feet in height from the sidewalk. The lights are kind of embedded within the structure, so they're somewhere around 19 feet.
Okay. And how does that compare to a normal freestanding street light? At what elevation above the street level is it normally?
That I cannot respond to you off the top of my head. I think streetlights range between 20 feet and 30 feet.
So it's a little bit of a lower position streetlight, and also to the limitations of the rendering. If the rendering were accurate, what we would be looking at is a kind of crisscross lighting effect, somewhat, since one would be baffled to the north and one would be baffled to the south. Am I correct in that?
Somewhat, I would say the majority of the high intensity illumination will be pointed to the north and the south. However, we're still providing some illumination to the sidewalk itself.
Right,
and I think now the perception of the lighting won't be the crisscross because of the kind of concealed source. So you're not, I don't think you're going to perceive and read the light as you described.
But you just said that was the higher intensity light that was crisscrossing effectively. Because one
It is, but as Douglas explaining, it's not like we don't have any light pointed to the sidewalk itself. So in order to achieve an even illumination, you wouldn't perceive a very strong crisscrossing. It would be more of a diffuse light.
Okay. But the fact remains that these are equivalent to streetlights in intensity, and they're at a slightly, you know, they're mounted at a slightly lower position than normal streetlights, and they're directly under the line of a pedestrian route.
Yes, to a certain extent. That said, we calibrate the amount of light output based on the illumination that's reaching the ground. So when you have light posts, you're going to have a slightly higher light output to achieve the same kind of illumination on the ground. And that's what all the photometric studies are used for.
Okay, so it's somewhat customized for the specific installation. All right.
Correct.
I'd like to, Dale, are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah, now I am.
I'd like to open, Viren, do you still have some question, or your hand is, it's an old hand?
It's an old hand, but I think you're totally right. At the same time, I think this is a design problem, and that you're absolutely right about that. It has to be taken back to the drawing board, discussed with the architects.
Yeah, I agree. So let's open to the public if there is anyone, Janine.
Yes, I believe so. Give me one moment. I'm gonna bring Jonine, and then there's a phone number over. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually from New York City DOT to speak on the second project. I didn't have any association with this project.
Oh, okay, we'll get to you for the next. project.
Sorry if I clicked on the wrong thing.
Oh, you want us to talk about life with you? Who else is calling?
There's a phone number that ends in 295, and then there's Alan, and then there's Mike Noble.
So where's 295? Please unmute yourself. I don't see 295 anymore.
No.
Okay, so there is Alan.
Yes, Alan and then Mike.
Okay. Alan?
Good evening. Just a quick clarification. Your suggestion about putting the lights on the side of the overpass, you're not suggesting to remove the ones underneath?
No, I mean this. No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm suggesting is
I was
that
just confused about it a little bit. Okay, no.
the traffic light should be in a different location, and then the pedestrian light could be then designed to be really a pedestrian lighting and maybe indirect, or having very soft and very nice. That's what we are. And who else was Mike?
Yes.
Hey, Mike.
Hello. A question for Isabel, just to get some correlation between the intensity of the light that we see in the rendering compared to what is the regular light that one would experience, right? Ambient light during the day, right? Is it more intense? Is it less intense? Do we feel like we're walking into some sort of amusement park when we walk underneath the High Line at night? I would like to think that this would be a sort of consistent feeling that you're walking along and it's as if it were daytime. Is that something that's considered when you evaluate these things?
It is considered, I think, as Doug had explained before, part of the challenge with this light is that it's not only intended to create a safe environment for pedestrians, it also needs to illuminate the roadway. And when we walk around New York City, you will notice that in some cases the roadway is slightly more lightly lit than the sidewalk itself. So it will not be as bright as a daytime, but it will likely be a little bit brighter than your typical New York City sidewalk at night.
Okay, because some folks, when they go out at night, older people, for example, are disconcerted by intense light at night in a particular spot that they're walking in, and it's a safety hazard. I must tell you, people get freaked out by intense light at night, and the more it resembles daytime, normal daylight is to the better, So that's my comment.
I see your comment. One piece of information I would like to add is that what does resemble daylight is the temperature of the light. We're looking at a light temperature that's of warmer tones, more of a yellowish light, which is more in keeping with what's comfortable with your eye, what's comfortable with daytime. It is not a bluish light that we see on other occasions that is uncomfortable and has proven to be uncomfortable. So to that end, yes, it's more human-friendly level of temperature.
That's what I was aiming at. Thank you for that, Claire. Blue light, not good.
Not good. I agree.
Yellow light, good. Thank you.
I would also just underscore, kind of globally speaking, is the The other important factors is the uniformity of lighting. So you don't have hot spots, which can create kind of more hazardous when you go from dark to light or light to dark.
Exactly.
So there's a big increase in the uniformity of lighting achieved via this project. There are special, the intersections in particular, where we focused, certain amounts of lights where the intersections do have a little bit more prominence, not only to indicate the traffic, but also pedestrians. But on the walkway, the uniformity is one thing that we've also tried to achieve because that's a better experience and perception.
Now that you bring that up, the crosswalks, the reflective white stripes on the street, they themselves.
That's DOT.
That's DOT. But I'm just saying, more light is coming off of those things than normal. You see, those are the things that disturb people. All right. So to the extent you look at that, great. Anyway, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so I want to bring it back to the committee, and I don't know, Dale or David, would you want to formulate a recommendation at this point? Which would be along what Viren was saying, yeah, right, Viren, which is like, ask them to go back to the drawing board and figure a way to do it.
Well, but more, I think with a little more detail. Yes, I mean, with a little more detail. I don't think we should be designing it, but I think the basic concept is that that they need to look at separating the lighting for the cars and the pedestrians. And right now, it's an attempt to do it all with one fixture and in one location, and that's the problem. Yeah, I don't think the planters, the little LEDs on the planters are solving the problem. It's the problem of trying to have one fixture. It's neither fish nor fowl. It's trying to do two things, and it's doing them both badly. It needs to be two separate fixtures and two separate locations for the two types of lighting, cars and pedestrians.
I mean, I would generally agree with that, although I don't necessarily know that it's doing it badly. I just don't think we don't know, and we can't assess that. It's a lot of faith to put in a kind of customized fixture to maintain without kind of evidence that it's going to properly light a pedestrian path as well as two adjacent streets. So I would just say we have questions about the ability of this approach to tackle all of those tasks simultaneously.
Well, I think I would go just a little further. I mean, the fact that there are three tasks and the one for the pedestrian is not well taken care of, I would say that this should be our priority, under the High Line, and then the car lighting should be added in some way, but not interfering with what we have today. What I think what David said was, the priority is lighting the street, the road, and then, oh, by the way, the pedestrian, right? I think what we are asking is light the pedestrian, and if you have to light the road, find a way to do it which doesn't interfere with it. Let's put it this way.
So Christine, if I may try and sort of rephrase that a little bit. Basically, what we're asking them to do is come back with a lighting plan that is respectful of the structure of the High Line and is more focused towards pedestrian lighting alone. Any lighting that is required for the streets on either side of the structure should again be respectful of the High Line and maybe potentially be independent.
Right. You got that, Dale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all dancing around the same. Yeah.
Right. We'll try to merge
that. We can find language that addresses all this.
David, are you making a motion?
Sure. I so move that I mean, I think, yeah, Dale can come up with a melding of those three different ways to approach it. But But yeah, yes, I make that motion.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Non-eligible? Okay. So Doug, we really appreciated you made a lot of improvements. We will mention that we like the planters and the lighting around the planters. I personally like the one on the bottom, but then we'll have the request that you really continue to work on refining the lighting above.
Understood. And Christine, just one point that I want to just be clear on to make sure that we're on the same page. Regarding the planters, we thought it was the expectation that this would be part of the local business improvement district, that the ongoing maintenance, is that understood?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay. So that would be, is that this committee or whatever, but that would be a kind of program sponsored, and the seasonal replacement, if necessary, would be something of the bid.
Yeah. That was the discussion we had when we were at the bid. Yes.
Perfect. So we understand, we appreciate your comments and the dialogue. I think we will take under advisement the recommendations, balancing that against, our project, our project budget, our partners, and also, something that, splits the difference with DOT and kind of all of our approvals that we've worked hard. So we understand your.
Who is your interface at DOT?
Cuts across many divisions, signals, traffic, planning, so John Matera has been a point of contact for us, but we have coordinated with probably 6 of these sub-agencies.
But you have.
Hi, it's Colleen from DOT. So John Matera is from my office. I'll follow up with John.
Yeah, if we could, Colleen, if we could have a conversation, at least to maybe share our perspective. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, Christine. I know you're very thorough, so you're going to send me an email.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Doug and Isabel and Annabelle. Thank you for taking the time to argue with us and to try to get to the ideal solution. We really appreciate that.
A friendly debate is cordial debate. So we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now DOT, West 35th Street and City Bike Infill.
Great. Is it the City Bike Infill that's next?
I think it's me.
Or it's Jonine. Hi, Jonine. Introduce yourself.
I wasn't sure if you were ready. If I could, while I'm doing that, if you could bring in as panelists Ashley Ritchie and Nicholas Cameron from our STV design team, I would appreciate that. Not sure who's handling that. Someone from the community board staff, perhaps, Janine?
Yep, I'm bringing it over. If you have a presentation, I didn't receive anything. So if there's anything you need me to screen share, please send it to me.
Okay, can Ashley be made a co-presenter so she can present the presentation and then we can email it to you?
Yeah, she can present it. I just need a copy of it so I can screen share it to everybody.
Okay. I guess we could do that. If you could make her a co-host in the meantime, I'll get it to you because it's a large file.
Okay.
Because she needs to. Is she a co-host? Because she needs to speak to the slides.
Okay. Yeah, she is here. She should be able to.
Good. Okay. So I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you in just a moment. So as soon as I make the introductions. So I'm Jonine Kidder. I'm the Executive Director of Community Affairs here at DOT Division of Bridges. I'm also the Chief of Staff. So thank you for allowing us to come to you tonight to quickly discuss with you the rehabilitation of the 35th Street Bridge over Amtrak. With me tonight is Ashley Ritchie from STV, and she's the lead structural designer, and Nicholas Cameron of her staff. So our goal for tonight is to take you through a presentation. We are at the end of our preliminary design, and we would hope that we can answer whatever questions you have at the end of the presentation. And we don't need a formal letter of approval at this point for the project. So I'm not a formal board resolution is not required, but we will be happy to address any concerns that you have. And so, Ashley, if you're ready to take it away, then I will send over to the board a copy of the presentation.
Sure. Can I just confirm that people can see my screen?
Yes.
You see the presentation up. Okay, very good. I've got two screens up. Wanted to make sure I was sharing the right one. Good evening. Thank you for letting us join you this evening to present our project to you. We're going to be talking about the rehabilitation of the West 35th Street Bridge over Amtrak, the 30th Street branch right there at the Jacob Javits Center. On our opening slide here, you see a picture of our bridge looking west towards the Javits Center. So this is our project location in aerial view. There's a little inset down below that kind of highlights the bridge itself. From the top side, you really don't know you're on the bridge or when it starts. So it's that yellow highlighted
Ashley,
area.
It didn't advance.
It didn't advance. I'm sorry. Let me see. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Bridge location, yellow highlighted area there in aerial view. Thanks, Jonine. The bridge was built in 1934. It's 3 spans. It was modified in 1988. Amtrak put in some transfer frames when they realigned their tracks under the bridge. It frames into the 11th Avenue Viaduct. As I mentioned, Amtrak 30th Street line is below. It's 107 feet long and 60 feet wide. Hopefully that advanced. So here's a couple of photos of the, the original configuration and what it looks like today. It originally was 3 lanes of traffic. It goes westbound in one direction towards 11th Avenue, has 2 very wide sidewalks of 13 feet each on each side. There was a 1 vehicle lay-by lane on the right-hand side at one time, and there was a pedestrian plaza overbuild there. Things have changed in the neighborhood, as you know, with the Hudson Yards development. There's some construction right now at this bridge. So the current configuration, it's been operating as 1 lane in the westbound direction towards 11th Avenue. The overbuild area has been demolished and abandoned. There was a tower going up there in this photo taken just this month on the right-hand side there. There was a tower going up there. It looks like construction has stopped for now. We don't really know when construction is going to resume, but it looks to kind of be inactive at the moment. So here's some existing condition photos of the bridge. The first one there on the left shows the existing end abutment. It was exposed while they were building there at 3 Hudson Yard. We were able to get a really good picture of it. On the other two smaller photos, it's just a picture underneath the bridge. There's some netting there. It protects the Amtrak tracks from any falling or spalling concrete. So that netting is there currently. This is just kind of an elevation of the existing section. What I just described, this is the picture of it, 3 lanes, 2 wide sidewalks, and it shows the concrete arch, the railroad crash wall underneath. I'll move on. So here's just a summary of the bridge issues. We did our inspection in 2019, before COVID. The top of the concrete deck and the underside of the concrete superstructure, there is spalling of concrete, exposed rebars. You see there in the picture in the upper right, the deck is spalled and you see some rebar there. Underside, at the photo in the lower left, also some spalling and some corrosion in the photo on the bottom right. Some additional bridge issues. I mentioned that, there's the 11th Avenue connection there. There's rusting and deterioration there at that connection. There is fatigue, and just the fact that this bridge frames into the 11th Avenue structure presents some challenges, and we'll talk about how we're addressing that with our preferred alternative in a little bit. And the other photo on the bottom left there shows a deck joint that you can see from the top side. It's cracking and there's some deterioration there. The Amtrak modification that I talked about earlier, the one in 1998, this is shown here from underneath. These are so-called transfer frames. It was supposed to be temporary, but it's, it was installed in 1988 and it's still there and supporting this bridge. So again, one of our objectives here was to eliminate the dependence on these transfer frames put in by Amtrak. So just a summary of our project objectives. We're looking for a bridge service life of 50 or more years. We want to minimize impacts to Amtrak below. Of course, we want to minimize impacts to pedestrians and vehicles that use the bridge and the area. It's grown so much, with the Hudson Yards development. So that definitely the traffic, the changing traffic patterns due to these large scale developments, that's certainly something we're taking into account. Here's some renderings. Just I'm assuming you all live there, you know how the neighborhood is changing. Some of these are just renderings of some of the developments going on: Hudson Yards, 3 Hudson Boulevard, and the Javits Center expansion. So I'll walk you through some of our alternatives. We in the preliminary design phase, we go through our design report. We look at a range of alternatives to meet those objectives that I just went over. We look at traffic. We collect environmental samples. We look across all disciplines to try to minimize impacts, but yet come up with an alternative that meets those objectives. So we always start with a no-build alternative. In this case, doing nothing with a no-build was really just not an option, but everything gets kind of checked against a no-build. So it's always in the mix. Number 2, we looked at a deck replacement, but given the current condition of the deck and the ongoing construction that's kind of occupying half of the bridge at the moment, it really didn't make sense to just replace the deck. So we started looking at superstructure replacement. And there were some sub options there. So because it's currently a 3-span structure, we looked at another 3-span structure, kind of an in-kind replacement of the superstructure. And then we kind of moved away from that, found that not to be feasible because it still depends on the Amtrak transfer frames. So then we said, well, what if we get rid of the Amtrak transfer frames and they're at Pier 2 and we make it a 2-span structure? But then we're increasing the loading on Pier 1, which would require a significant retrofit. So then we said, well, what if we go single span and we get rid of Pier 1 and Pier 2? But then it's too long of a span and it puts too much load on the existing 11th Avenue connection. So that too would then, if we keep that, would require a significant retrofit. So after moving through those sub alternatives there, we moved on to looking at full bridge replacement. And in that case, we felt like a single span, it's definitely doable. And with this option of full bridge replacement, we can put in a new pier to replace the connection at 11th Avenue. So now with this bridge replacement, we're not only separating this bridge from Amtrak, but now we're separating it from the 11th Avenue connection as well. So we have a nice single span bridge that's independent of these other connections that have been there for quite a while. Touching on other advantages that we've talked about, the 50-year service life we would get, we would address seismic, and there would be a new integral abutment at the other end. And the integral abutment eliminates the joint, so it thereby eliminates future maintenance issues or minimizes them anyway. So the construction would look a lot like it does now. It's being, staged for that tower that's that's under construction. We too would stage construction and build half at a time. And that's what this graphic depicts. So we would keep one lane open, much like is how it's being used now, with one sidewalk open on one side. While that's open, we're working on the other side, and then we switch. Stage 2, it's a mirror image, and we move to the other side. So it can be done in 2 stages. So work zone traffic control, like I mentioned, we'd always have one travel lane open. We'd always have one sidewalk open. Amtrak would be moving below. Work hours, we are still in the preliminary design phase, but certainly we would work with OCMC to determine what those work hours would be. We imagine that it would be during the day, with maintaining the travel and the pedestrian access. There may be some nighttime work required, and that would be coordinated with Amtrak. And typically those windows of working hours are a bit smaller, but we do anticipate there would be some work done at night. And the pedestrian access, the last bullet there is kind of just a repeat, but just to enforce that we would keep pedestrian access open during construction. So this is, a section of the final condition. We would build back pretty much what's there now, 3 lanes and two full sidewalks. That's what will be there once all the construction is done, our construction, the tower construction, and community outreach. Of course, this is step 1, meeting with you here this evening. As we move through design, we have a consultant on our STV team to help with public outreach once we get to final design. These are some methods that we would reach out and keep the community abreast of project development, social media, any emergency service. We'd coordinate with you and neighboring projects, Amtrak, special events. Jonine is a great resource, and so we look forward to working with her through the process. Here's just kind of a standard DOT slide, of that we can produce materials in multiple languages, multiple platforms, and a little bit on the project schedule. As we mentioned, we're just wrapping up our preliminary design phase and looking forward to moving into final design. We're looking at starting final design in the spring of next year. We're kind of estimating about 18 months, a year and a half for final design. Give about 6 months for advertisement and getting a contractor on board. And right now we're assuming conservatively 3 years for construction. The DOT in their capital plan, they have $17 to $18 million allocated for this project. It is 100% city funded. And that brings us to the end of this presentation, and we'll open it up for questions.
Hold on 1 second, Janine. Is there anyone from DOT that needs to be brought as panelist?
I don't believe so.
I brought the 2 over that you asked for, but that's all.
If I could too, if I could just, Janine, if you could have us have the exact email address you want the link sent to, because as I said, with the images, it's a very large file.
Okay.
So we want to send you the whole thing through a link directly from STV.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions?
I have a quick question.
Who has question? Dale?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
I'm thinking, I don't know, it seems to me, I could be wrong about this, I'm not an engineer, but based on the replacement approach that you're taking, wouldn't you get more greater than a 50-year life out of the replacement project as proposed?
Well, our general, we probably should have depicted it as a range. We generally on bridge replacement, we look for anywhere from 50 to a 70-year life on bridge replacement.
So
50, I guess, would be like the minimum.
I see. So it's like you have to meet that minimum, but it may well last longer.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Anybody else of the committee? I don't see any hand up. Anybody from the, okay, I have a bunch of questions before we do the, oh, Jeffrey, you raised your hand.
What, 17 to 19 million? Did I see that? Or 15 to 19 million, right?
17 to 18 at this point right now.
Got it. And this is, that is a lot of money. And we clamor and beg for pennies for pedestrian improvements. And to see the volume of money spent on a one-block street to prioritize vehicles with $17 million of tax dollars is kind of alarming. It's one block. And I just wonder the value of continuing prioritizing vehicular access on a street. We have seen open streets transform the city. When cars are not rattling down roadways, they actually last a lot longer too. So I do wonder if a study was done to look at what would it mean if cars were not allowed on this portion of 35th Street.
I can't say that we've taken a look at it from that, but there is existing traffic volume on the street and existing pedestrian volume, and we are providing for both. And in this particular location, the sidewalks are wider than we're able to provide at many locations. So this does serve 12-foot sidewalk on each side for pedestrians as well as vehicles. The alternative.
What is it's 12, so 12 on each side, 24 feet for pedestrians. And what is the width for vehicles?
Ashley, is that 312s? Is that 36?
It's 312s.
36.
So it's 36 and 24.
And 13-foot sidewalks. So if
13.
We're splitting hairs, 13 on each side.
Fine.
So the idea though is I think there's existing traffic volume there. There are existing structures and facilities that are served by this street being a through street. And if that volume were not accommodated on this block, it would move to another block and perhaps add congestion on the adjacent streets to get to that other street. We generally,
we are well-versed and familiar with sort of traffic movements and roadway readjustments and how those do or don't benefit a community. The sky did not fall when the 14th Street truck and transportation, priority throughway went into effect on 14th Street. So I'm very concerned that DOT is automatically allowed to proceed with a project to spend almost $20 million on a one-block roadway without analysis, a 21st century, not just a 21st century, a 2022 analysis of the streetscape. This is a huge amount of money that could do a whole lot more to improve the pedestrian experience and quality of life for Hell's Kitchen than 15 to 17 million dollars to allow some cars to get through this block.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry, Jeffrey. This doesn't strike me as an apt comparable. So this isn't just about like allowing cars to ride on 35th Street.
Sure.
Is this not about maintaining Amtrak service beneath as well? So this is something. It's happening at the intersection or at not an intersection.
Over the rail cut.
Convergence of railway and overhead street.
That's fair.
Yeah.
May I chime in?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, Del, I hear your point, but I think Jeffrey is also making a very big point, and it's really true. I mean, there are give and takes here, right? So if we must do this to maintain what's happening below for Amtrak, okay, got it. We need to also keep the traffic moving, got that as well. But why 3 lanes? Why not 2 lanes and much wider sidewalks? Why not sort of rethink the design of the bridge itself, number one. Number two, yes, it's going to increase traffic congestion, but from what I've heard from traffic engineers, traffic congestion actually is not terribly bad for pedestrians. It actually slows traffic down and it actually keeps pedestrians safer. So, there's a give and take on either side. And I think if this bridge project must go through, there has to be something more than what it's giving back to the city for the pedestrians. So maybe that becomes a negotiating point.
So we could certainly look at expanding the width of the sidewalks. The question I think that would have to be examined is what is the existing width of the sidewalks leading to the bridge? If you have a sidewalk that's, I don't know, 10 feet, 12 feet, 13 feet, and it leads to a sidewalk on a bridge that's much wider, I don't know really what that achieves because you have not increased the ability to bring pedestrians through the entire block.
But you do both.
You have to start somewhere.
You do both. You do both. You make sure that the pedestrians can get to it. And second thing is,
yes, but we're not reconstructing the sidewalks on the whole block. We're only reconstructing the bridge. And so again, we could certainly take this back and take a look at making the sidewalks wider and creating a pinch point in the block for reducing the lanes down from 3 to 2. We can certainly go back and take a look at that. We can ask the team to take a look at the traffic counts and traffic analysis they have and determine, what the impact would be on traffic. I don't think that's a huge ask. From a technical point of view, to convert travel space to sidewalk space, we can certainly look at that. It's just a question of what is the, what becomes then of that, again, with widening sidewalks that lead again to, kind of a funnel. So we can take that recommendation back and certainly take a look at that.
And I would just add one more.
Viren, let me, please finish what you're saying.
No, my only other thought was it's not just merely expanding the sidewalk width. It's actually designing that as a streetscape. So it really becomes a place people will want to go to.
Well, I'm not sure in terms of streetscape. We don't have the ability to put street furniture or other kind of amenities on the bridge.
Joanne, can you hold for the—
Sure.
Once you have all the comments, I think we can talk about that. Could you go back to page 15? Yeah. So I had the same comment, which is why rebuild the same thing that was there 50 years ago when the world was different, right? And we know today that a parking lane, first of all, there are not 3 travel lanes.
Right.
There is only 1 travel lane and 2 parking lanes. So the name is a little bit misleading here. And the parking lanes these days are 8 feet, not 11.4. When we do the bike lanes, we are doing 8th Avenue right now, the parking lane is 8 feet. So we really don't need 2 11.4 parking lanes here, right there, right off the bat. And the lane in the middle, 11.4, the moving lanes are 10 these days when we are trying to compress that. So what you are rebuilding here, what my colleagues are telling you is that you are rebuilding a design which was 1960, and this is not the design we are putting in, you are putting in as the DOT for new streets. So we need, at a minimum, we need to comply with the new design.
Okay, so I think we can confirm back for you the requirements of the MUTCD in terms of lane widths and what our requirements are.
There's no requirement from MUTCD on lane width, because this is what is being installed on 8th Avenue when you have a zillion of trucks and traffic going on. So we know that.
Right, but
this is presented to us every 3-4 months when we do a project to change our streets.
If there's a waiver or a deviation from a standard on another project, I certainly can't speak to that.
We have the projects are changing that, all of them.
Okay, we will, and we also have our New York State Bridge Manual, so we'll go back specifically and look at this slide. And again, this is preliminary design. This is why we're here to have the conversation, to get your input and ask these questions, and we'll take a look at that, and we'll come back to you with our what we have is our traffic counts for this block, and we share that with you.
Can you let me speak, please?
I'm sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, by far not. So first of all, this is a street, this is not a bridge. It's not a bridge like to go to the Washington Bridge or whatever. It's a street. So let's use the right words. Otherwise, yes, we're going to do MUTCD and they're going to say on a bridge, this is what happened. It's not a bridge. It's a street that happens to go over a railway. Okay, so the different language should apply. And second, yes, we need this on each side of those sidewalks. Buildings of 60, 70, 100 stories are going to be built with a need for pedestrian volume enormous. Okay, and in some on the avenues, we have requirement to widen the sidewalk. This is the time to do the same thing here. And by the way, a 10 feet travel lane is fine. This is what we have on 14th Street, which is across town. And the and that doesn't decrease the amount of cars that can come through. There is no impact on the volume, none. Okay, so I think what we are asking you to do is to come back and say the end result is going to be consistent with the new installation we have in New York City. To give more space to pedestrians, less parking lane, narrower lane so that people don't speed, and which is consistent with the district. The district is essentially an MTA-driven district, not a car-driven district. And we don't want cars on these streets. We don't, because they have to cross a park in order to come here. So this is a terrible thing to do for them to get a sense that they have a highway here. I'm going to go back to David.
So if I could, I hear everything you're saying, and we're taking all this information with us, but I do need to reaffirm that this is a bridge structure. It is experienced by the community as a street. I know that many people may not even realize there's a bridge there over Amtrak, but it is a bridge structure, and we are required to conform to the New York State Bridge Design Manual and those other documents. So that doesn't discount any of the comments you've made, but it is a bridge structure and it has to be referred to by us in that way.
Well, yeah, and you can build a bridge under it.
Bridge like the bridge on 30th Street, like building Metro West.
Top of it, as you build on the top of it is different from the bridge. Okay, there are two different concepts here. What you are under, it's a bridge and you should follow all the rules. But what you build on the top is a street and it should follow the rules. So I think we're not saying. David.
Can I just add one thing regarding that? I just wanted to note that, I mean, and we will go back to our traffic data, but I believe in the sense that there's one lane with parking on each side. I think that is the condition up to Hudson Boulevard, but I know, this has been under construction for with that tower there for a while, but I believe that we, between Hudson Boulevard and 11th Avenue, I think we need more than one travel lane. There probably is the potential to widen sidewalks.
How do you know you need that?
For traffic, about how many volumes we need to process to 11th Avenue.
If 35th Street was narrow before, you had the neck down, the bottleneck, and therefore you can't need more after it than before.
Well, potentially with the development in the area and the projected traffic, but we will look back at that.
We have already established that. We have a group in DOT which is working on Shared Street to reduce all the traffic at 5 miles per hour. And this is the street which is just across the street from here. So we can't have two design guidelines for the neighborhood. Okay, the traffic is not the driver in this neighborhood. Okay, the pedestrians are. It's a park, pedestrian, and commute by transit. This is not traffic. Okay, David.
Yeah, what I'm sensing from this presentation is that this was basically given to these folks as an engineering problem, strictly an engineering problem. Rebuild the bridge, and they've done, and that's exactly what they've done. I mean, the way this presentation was created, shown with all the pictures from underneath and the language, it's a structural engineering presentation. What's disturbing to me is how apparently siloed the DOT itself is, that there was no consideration of first creating a program for the bridge. A program, and obviously the first step would be, well, what is the need of, how wide does this bridge actually need to be? How many lanes of traffic does it need? How much, measuring, looking at future development and how many pedestrians will be in that future development, how many cars will be in that future development. That should have been the very first step. Instead, the bridge was designed, brought to the community board, and then the community board is doing what should have been done internally within DOT before the structural engineers ever saw this project. And that is very unsettling and upsetting. There is something wrong with your process, that the community board is pointing out that you need a program for a project before you start the project. It shouldn't be the community board that points that out. DOT should know that and should be sequencing this project in the proper way.
Okay, Viren.
No, I just want to just reiterate my same point that, let's be very clear. Your slide says 3 lanes of traffic, and we're talking about single lane of traffic as is the existing condition. And the parking is criminal. So, there's no need for the parking to continue. So I think pinching the sort of 2 ends of the bridge would be the way to go. But please reconfirm that it's going to be a single lane of traffic.
Yeah.
And widen sidewalks.
Right. And then 544, is that Rob? You had something to say, Rob?
No, I was just asking do you know where Manhattan West is, where they're building that new tower? Right where 30th Street is and 9th Avenue. I was wondering, is that the same kind of road where there's like a bridge underneath of it? You know how they're replacing that entire bridge?
Yeah. I'm not sure that this is the same kind of road.
Okay. Never mind. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the public, Janine? The committee? Anybody else? I mean, I have consumed all the air in the room. I'm sorry. I'm getting.
I like Jeffrey's point. On the about there's so much for cars and nothing for the pedestrians and stuff. So I agree with Jeffrey on that.
So, Janine, anybody in the public?
No, I don't see any more hands up.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm going to try to summarize what I heard. I think your structural approach is obviously probably very good. I don't feel we are competent to discuss that, but I think generally we are all going to say when you rebuild the street on the top, you need to rebuild it to the standards we are using in the district and around the park, and increase the pedestrian space as much as possible, reduce parking space, reduce travel lane side, have only one travel lane. And, the objective at the end is that there is a place where it's easy to cross the street for pedestrians, it's safe, and it accommodates a lot of pedestrians because they'll be coming out of these humongous towers, right? And we are working with other division of the DOT to achieve the same thing on all the other streets. So I think it would make sense that we try to achieve that here.
So I thank you all for the input. This is exactly why we come to the community board at the milestones throughout the development of the project. You know the community better than anyone, so we will take back all of the issues you've identified tonight in terms of the parking, the lane widths, the width of the sidewalks, all of these points, and we will bring together our existing traffic data and traffic information and come back to the board with an update as the design progresses. And we'll come back to you, we hope, with something that you feel meets the needs of the community. That's what we're here for.
Thank you. So I made kind of a summary. Do we have a motion?
I make the motion as stated, Christine.
Second, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Present, non-eligible? Okay, well, thank you so much. It was really, I mean, we are very glad that you brought it in.
Thank you. And I just thank my colleagues behind me at DOT for waiting through 2 presentations and for letting us go in ahead of you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
So now the bike share, right?
Hi, everyone. It's Colleen Chattergoon from City Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for hosting us this evening on the 2 presentations. Our next presentation would be the City Bike infills, and to give that would be my colleague, Brian, and he is on the line. We share the presentation with Janine, but I believe Brian is going to share it from his PC as well.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, Brian.
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay?
Twice on the screen. Where are you?
Twice on the screen. Okay, we have a presentation. Screen. Can everybody see everything okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm the operations manager with Bike Share and Shared Mobility Group at DOT. And thank you for hosting us tonight. So we are here to give a quick overview about City Bike. We'll talk through our infill project, a little bit more on our enhanced data-driven planning process, and finally walk through our proposal for City Bike infill for Manhattan's Community Board 4. Okay, you're all quite familiar at this point. City Bike is our city's bike share system. We've been operating since 2013. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week system operated under public-private partnership with our colleagues at Lyft, who are responsible for day-to-day operations and maintenance. Currently, no city funds are used to run the system and supported through revenue generated by membership and other rider fees. To date, the system's 8 years old. We launched in 2013 in Manhattan and Brooklyn with 330 stations, increased again to 750 stations in 2017, and we're currently in the middle of our phase 3 expansion. Lyft acquired the program in 2019 and announced a major investment to bring the system to 70 square miles and 40,000 bikes. We're currently a 4-borough program and are about halfway through our phase 3 expansion. So the system to date is incredibly popular. We've had over 135 million trips to date. On our busiest days, we're regularly hitting 100,000 trips per day. That's about 5 trips per bike per day. Peak days earlier this summer was about 120,000 trips a day. And City Bike, unlike other transportation during the COVID-19 pandemic, really didn't drop off to the extent that other modes did. We were at about 95% of 2019 levels during the COVID pandemic. Next, we'll discuss our phase 3 program in a bit more detail. And that's consists of 2 distinct but linked projects, expansion and infill. So our phase 3 expansion is bringing City Bike to new parts of New York City and is going to double the geographic size of the system. Infill, represented by the gray area on this map, is adding additional capacity to the existing phase 1 and 2 service area, the densest part of the system. And we anticipate all these installations will be completed by 2024. So infill is essential for the functioning of the program. This is bringing, as I mentioned, capacity to the densest part of the system, and it really helps the system function. Rebalancing with a system this size just isn't enough to accommodate the increased demand and increased ridership as the system grows. Apologies. Okay. Talking a little bit about our timeline and principles, we're installing 16,000 docks in our infill program over the next 4 years. We're about 35% of the way complete. Site selection for infill is driven by both demand and filling network gaps, and we'll discuss that more in depth in a minute. Infill has been a rolling iterative process. We're currently installing in multiple boards at the same time. Discussing a bit about our planning process, we combine a number of inputs to our station siting proposal. We use community feedback from an online portal, a data-driven and spatial analysis show us the best places and appropriate sizes for stations and to ensure that infill does its job. We work with our partners, BC's office and LIFT to notify stakeholders in advanced installations. And then stations are installed and we continuously monitor them over time. Specifically, talk next about our infill planning process. Our high-level infill goal is to improve the system by reducing instances where riders can't find a bike or a dock. To help us with this, we've worked over the last year to create a model that looks at existing ridership patterns, identifies areas where we need to increase system capacity to meet rider demand. And looking at this map, you can take a look at the entire phase 1 and 2 service area. You can see there's pretty heavy demand in many parts of the area, but the most intense demand obviously is in Manhattan, south of 60th Street. Taking a deeper look into the community board level, you can see there's demand across the board. Some areas have a higher intensity of need. One of the limits of our model is it measures demand where there aren't currently existing stations. But as you know, there are some locations or some areas where stations aren't close to each other. So we've created this gap map to identify areas in the system that are farthest from a station and use these two layers of analysis, the demand model and the gap map, to create a powerful station sizing and siting tool. Which kind of leads us to here, the results of this tool. So according to our model, Community Board 4 needs about 2,700 docks to meet the existing demand. We're here tonight to discuss a proposal to install just shy of 500 docks, 493. And that comes in a variety of forms. It'll be reinstalled stations, extending existing stations, and also adding new stations where it's find appropriate. So let me know if I'm moving too quick here, but I'm happy to take questions or specifics at the end. The key is here on the slides. Each number is going to correspond with the site and its place in the slide. Different colors correspond to the station type. Red denotes a new station. Green is a reinstall. Blue is a relocation, and teal is for an extension to an existing station. So I'm happy to go through our list of sites here. Location number 1 is the south roadbed of West 17th Street at 7th Avenue. Location 2, 8th Avenue at West 23rd Street on the west roadbed. location 3, the south side of 25th Street at 9th Avenue in the roadbed. Location 4 is West 33rd Street in the south roadbed at 10th Avenue. Location 5, West 34th Street and Hudson Boulevard East in the south roadbed. 6, Hudson Boulevard East at West 36th Street in the east roadbed. And number 7, the north roadbed of West 39th Street at 9th Avenue. Rounding it out with 8 through 10. Number 8, West 47th Street at 9th Avenue in the north roadbed. Number 9, 8th Avenue and West 49th Street in the west roadbed. And finally, West 54th Street at 9th Avenue in the south roadbed. That is a station extension. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have. Of course, if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to Colleen or Ed's office, and our bike share email is bikeshare@dot.nyc.gov. Thank you, and I'm happy to turn it back over.
Brian, Rob, you have a question?
Yeah. How do we go about getting a bike station on the southwest corner of 24th Street and 9th Avenue on 24th Street, right by the Gerstides? We've been asking for a while. We have to go at least 3-4 blocks over and either past 23rd or up to go to a bike. And by that time, we could already be at the subway station. I thought City Bike was actually for the last mile. I'm just asking, who do we need to talk to get a station put in?
Well, here we are, but can you show the next slide, Brian? This one. So they are proposing to put a one here at West 25th and 9. It's not what you're talking about? Rob?
No, it's a block up. I was hoping it could be a block down at 24th. It'd be the perfect space because it's right on the side of 24th Street where Gerstides is, and it would only take up like a parking spot.
But it's at 8th or 9th?
This is at 9th.
Okay, so it's 24th at 9th in the southwest roadbed. I can certainly take that back to my colleagues and take a look.
Corner on 24th. It's right where the Gerstides is at 24th and 9th.
What is the intersection, Rob?
Excuse me?
Yeah, can you repeat the intersection exactly?
It's the southwest corner of 24th Street and 9th Avenue, but on 24th Street. It's right in front of, well, right on the side of Gerstides where the windows are.
Okay, I got it. Okay, next, Tina.
I'm curious, when you decided where these locations went, given the fact there's open restaurants now, was there any consideration or talk with any of the property owners or restaurant owners when deciding where these installations go?
Yeah, I think we specifically took open restaurants into consideration and looked to make sure that we were not conflicting with any open restaurant structures.
Yeah, and it's Colleen from DOT, and we have done notification to property owners, businesses, and letting them know that, you know, new stations are coming in the area. So we've done our notification and outreach as well.
So we could assume that these locations, the property owners or the restaurant owners knew about it before this presentation took place. In other words, if anyone had any objection to a location and said, please move it down the block, where would that comment be or concern?
Well, yeah, we've created a flyer that we shared with the community board. And we share the flyer with the elected officials, letting them know that we would be presenting this, you know, to the CB4 Transportation Committee meeting this evening. So we've done a lot of outreach on this.
Right, so typically we'll come to you at the board first, and then as we move forward with the installation process, we'll notify properties prior to installation. And And that gives them the opportunity to raise any concerns, or, you know, we can work with them about any specific like operational issues they might have.
Jeffrey?
Thank you. Just so, is the reason we're only getting, was it 493, about 500 docks, and yet the need is 2,700? Is that because of like Citi Bike doesn't have enough docks to meet that demand right now?
I don't think, well, specifically in the next year, that's what we plan for equipment wise. But again, this is an iterative process. We're going to go forward with these installs and take a look and see how the system responds, and look to find additional space as we can in the next couple of years. We're this phase 3 infill process is going to last until about 2024.
Okay, so it's not it will continue to grow in the district for starters. Yes. Okay. The highest need versus lowest need map, which was fascinating, and you noted that your software has the ability to assume use even where there's not a dock, right? There's a lot of discussion in the Hudson River Park community about a lack of bikes along the far west side. I also live on 11th Avenue at 53rd Street. And if I don't leave my apartment by 10 o'clock to get a Citi Bike, there's 4 docks around me and they're all empty. So I need to leave always before 10, which I should anyway. So like, it's my own fault, but that's a problem. And then along the far west side, where we have seen, right, and this is just from a planning perspective, right? Residential development moving much further west of Manhattan, huge boom in usership of the Greenway. And that Hudson River Park is really, Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen's main backyard. And so wondering, and there's Pier 79 has a large Citi Bike dock, which makes a whole lot of sense. It's a multimodal transportation hub right there. And then Pier 40 down on Houston Street is really the only other that I'm aware of. So I do wonder, and it's so many of us go from our apartments to get to the park perhaps by Citi Bike, and I think a lot of folks don't because there's not docks there. So I wonder, your map almost doesn't go far enough to a certain extent to it ignores a use that's pretty prominent in the river.
And to dovetail on Jeffrey's comment, we've had some conversations with the folks at Chelsea Piers who are really aching for a dock at that location.
And Chelsea Piers is at about 20th to 24th Street, basically, in the Hudson River. So was there was Hudson River Park looked at? Was the area along the Greenway analyzed?
I think some of the challenges with Hudson River Park and the Greenway is coordinating with the state and finding adequate space along the Greenway. The West Side Highway is a bit of a limitation here, in that it's not, like a long blocks. We're looking at like busy traffic. There's just not great spaces to put stations, at least on the far west side, and it's a bit of a divider to the Greenway. And the Greenway itself, is another kind of a siting challenge, just because we do have to coordinate with HRPT and the state as well.
We have,
I'd worked on a bit on this in this model, so I can also give a little bit of color to answer your question. The model uses where stations already exist, and we look at the shortfall in like docks or bikes that are available there in order to kind of infer in areas where we don't have stations, like what the demand would be. So we kind of like take the stations as points of measurement, and then we kind of like have a way where we kind of like spread that over in a circle, in a radius that moves outward. So what you'll see on this map is kind of like these dark spots that are along the west, which means that there aren't stations there, or like if you're standing there, you have to walk pretty far to get to a station. So it's in those areas where the model is not going to do that well in measuring the kind of hidden demand, because we don't have stations there to read the demand. So that's kind of where the network gap and the demand model kind of come together.
So is that map specifically showing high demand near Chelsea Piers? If you can get a little granular on it.
They don't have the existing station there.
Right, but even the dark spot, even if I understand it correctly, the dark spots.
Yeah, what is the address of the blue spot?
Yeah, so if we look at where we bump out, that's 26th Street. So if we just come a couple bits south of that and go west to the river, all those dark spots are around kind of where in the Chelsea Piers, Pier 64,
Yeah, but the dark spot are showing distance to the nearest station. They are not showing the highest need.
Bands.
So this is a different measurement.
Right.
Because the highest need is expressed in relation to their existing,
So
that's a good one. I mean, we'll put it in the letter,
It seems like the challenge is not just the park part is the purview of the state. It's also like the safety issues around crossing the highway, and then the siting the siting of the docks either on state land or in one of those facilities.
It would seem that Chelsea Piers is a good potential, right? Because there is a lot of space there, to position some.
Yeah, perhaps we'll hear from one of the representatives of Chelsea Piers, but the committee has heard from them in via email that they would be interested in a dock at their within their facility, if not on the Greenway.
Yeah. Okay, David.
Hi, thank you for being here. My question's related, but it's throughout the whole city, not just our area. I was reading that only 20% of your bikes are electric, which is totally insufficient. Also, I understand that they're going to hopefully put the charging of the electric bikes at the stations rather than taking them to and from. Because let's say if I'm doing a one-way trip or I'm doing a trip to Brooklyn, I live on 34th, but I work in downtown Brooklyn. Especially in the winter when the winds, it's so much easier for me to take a over the Brooklyn Bridge an electric bike versus your non-electric bike, which is like, I'm getting old. I can't do it. I mean, so is there any thought of plan of increasing the percentages of electric bikes from maybe 20 to 30 or 40? And also, when do you expect the direct charging stations to be put in to the bike station? And thank you for what you're doing. I like these stations near me, by the way.
Sure. I think currently where things are, the electrified fleet is going to remain at about 20%, but I don't know of any current plans to increase the fleet cap as far as electrified stations go. And then regarding
how could we get that done? How could we get them to increase it?
David, please, can we let this gentleman speak?
It's okay. I mean, it's something we can take back and discuss more with our partners at Lyft. As far as I'm aware at the moment, 20% is the amount we're going to keep the electric fleet at present. Regarding the electrified stations, the most I can tell you is that I know we're currently working with our partners at Lyft to explore that option. I know it's quite a complicated issue, bringing charging to these stations, but it's something both sides are definitely looking at. But I don't have any updated timelines as to when that might occur.
Okay, Rob, you still have a question, or it's an old hand? Okay.
No, it was from before. Sorry about that.
Could we go, Janine? Could we go to the public? Janine?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Is Leslie, Erica, Roberta, and Alan?
Wow, okay.
Hi, everyone. My name's Leslie. I'm the general manager of Chelsea Piers Fitness, and we're the health club located on the second floor of Pier 60. And I have, my business has, we have about 1,000 members coming in every single day. And that's about where we were pre-COVID, which is really exciting. And with that, we have probably about 10 to 15 questions per day about Citi Bike, because all of our members would use Citi Bike and want to take that as their transportation over to Chelsea Piers. But instead, if they're coming from the downtown or from uptown, they have to cross over the West Side Highway with their Citi Bike, and then they have to go to 22nd Street, 20th Street, 16th, 15th, or the new one down on the 14th Street side. And that adds an extra 10 to 12 minutes per trip to get over to Chelsea Piers after you drop off your bike, if you find a dock that has a spot that's open. During peak times, I think you guys are all aware, all of those areas are really busy, and it's hard to sometimes dock your bike, particularly around the 9 a.m. timeframe, around the 12 p.m. timeframe, and around the 6 to 8 p.m. timeframe, which is also parallels with when our busiest times for check-ins at the club is. So my request is for my members and my customers and our growing Chelsea Piers community, because we're just one of the many businesses over at Chelsea Piers, to get a Citi Bike station over on the West Side Highway, because it will eliminate that 12-minute commute back over from one of the stations. And I think something to think about with that is you're not just walking across to the cobblestone roadway that is parallel to the West Side Highway. You're walking through a whole garage to get into our entrance. And it just adds extra time, and it would make, it would help our business. It would help the community. It would help people who want to come over and check out all of the really amazing things that our complex has to offer, if there was a way to make it more accessible to everyone. And over the summer and over the fall, we saw so many people just roaming around the complex. We did a Pilates mat class over at Pier 62 and had an average of 80 people every Saturday morning coming to take a class with us. And if we gave all of the people who come over to that area on a daily, weekly basis, the tools to get there easier, to make it a little bit more easier for them, then you're going to see more people come over and utilize the West Side Highway, which everybody wants green space right now. Everybody wants the outdoors, and yeah. So my request is, what can we do to help move this along?
Written to HRPT about that?
Hi, Christine. It's Erica. We have Leslie runs fitness, and I mean, we've interacted before. I've been at these community board meetings, I think, for 15 years and know a lot of you guys. We have talked to Noreen, we have talked to Deborah. We have always thought that perhaps the area between 57 and 59, where it's very wide, made for a good area, because if your HRPT doesn't want bikes tucked into the park where the walkway is. And that makes sense, because you don't want that sort of mingling of traffic.
Okay, let's not do a citing here, but if you give us the location, we're going to put it on the list, but then immediately that's going to go to HRPT. So I think what is very important is you have a very serious conversation with HRPT and say, look, here's the list of business and they all want it. And this is where we propose to put it, right? So I think that's a very important part of the process.
Well, and we have tried to help get that going. But one of the issues was 57 was under construction, and that area was a big staging area. 57 is now planning to start opening and really having business operating there by January. So that staging area is now resolved, but we could use help sort of.
Back to my point, give us the location. The location you would like is what? Is between what pier and what pier?
Pier 59 and Pier 57.
Okay.
You can also get there very easily right off the bikeway. And from a sort of a bigger picture, if you look at, kind of spanning all the way up, which Jeffrey touched upon, from Little Island all the way up to the Frying Pan, there's a lot going in that has a lot of traffic, foot traffic, New Yorkers. So as spring comes, Little Island in its second season, and then 57 coming on board.
Okay, we're going to give that information to the DOT. But again, we're going to have Dale and you, and together we're going to have to talk to HRPT, and maybe Jeffrey and Lowell will do that as well, because we need them to participate, and it's not going to otherwise. But thank you, Erica, for the input.
Yes, no, we would love your help.
Who else wants to speak? That's it.
Oh, I have my hand raised, if that's okay. Hi, my name is Roberta. I'm a member of Manhattan Community Board 4, but I'm here as a member of the public. I am not going to speak for very long because a lot of what I'd like to say has been said. I am here to support the siting of docks or additional docks, either on or adjacent to the Hudson River Park and the Greenway. And by that, I mean west of 10th Avenue below 23rd Street and west of 11th Avenue above. It is for all of the reasons that have been mentioned here today, and all of the activity that's occurred. I heard earlier in this discussion a mention that there are often a lack of bikes available in the West 50s. And I would just like to highlight there's sort of the inverse problem in the teens, and this problem has only been exacerbated with the opening of Little Island this past summer. In the area around Chelsea Market and adjacent to Little Island, it's been next to impossible to find a dock during a busy summer stay, which indicates in my mind, even though the map is not wholly clear on that fact, there may be a shortage of docks available for people's use. And it would just be one additional site that I'd recommend. I think Erica's recommendation, Pier 57 area, certainly makes sense and would definitely support that if possible. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Roberta. And I'd like to also suggest that there should be a dock at the landing of the what is it called? The
ferry.
The ferry, yeah.
37th Street.
Right, at 37th.
There's a large dock at Pier 79, Christine, already.
Pier 79 is what, 39th Street?
That's the Pier 79 is the ferry land, is the ferry terminal. So it's the only one in Hudson River Park in our district.
Yeah. So unless there is something else I've written down, and maybe Dale, can you tell us what your notes are saying?
Yeah, that we'd ask for consideration of the intersection of 24th and 9th as an alternative to the ones or to the one proposed, and then also look at a comprehensive plan for incorporating Hudson River Park into the network, but with particular recommendations for
59 to 57, right?
Here's 59 to 57.
And then the Little Island, right?
And Little Island as well. Yeah, to service the various businesses and attractions in and around Chelsea Piers and Little Island.
Yeah.
And Sarah has her hand up.
Yeah, just on the topic of Chelsea Piers connectivity, in parallel to any conversations with those businesses and HRPT, West 19th Street is quite wide and has minimal traffic. So just very tactically, a site that would provide more Chelsea Piers accessibility could be 19th Street and the West Side Highway. And that wouldn't involve kind of all these other complications, it seems like.
Okay, yeah.
One more. Great. Okay, so
one comment to add. I mean, the graphics and the system here, the one that the honeycomb thing that's up on the screen now, it's it's very useful, and I commend this sub-agency of doing this kind of study in advance. But there's obviously a hole there's obviously a missing, they're coming to the community board and we're making all these specific suggestions, but I'm wondering if there's some analytical tool that could be added to these tools to sort of find, I'm not sure how you would do it, but to find demand. The problem with the system now is it finds demand after there's demand, right? If I'm understanding correctly.
Well, I guess you would have to do a survey of the users saying, where would you like to go that you can't go to, right?
Yeah.
What Jeffrey was talking about is say, I want to go to the park, but I'm not going to go to the park because there is no station.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's a very labor intensive way to do it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know the solution, but obviously there's a hole in this analytical technique, and going bit by bit to each community board is not necessarily, it's pretty labor intensive too. So I don't know if some of the database people can come up with some way of finding a demand, in advance instead of, waiting for it to show up after the fact.
Okay.
I don't think that should be in our letter, but I mean, it's just a
good point. So we just recap. So this is essentially what we would put in the letter. Can somebody make a motion, please?
I have another point to add to the summary, Christine.
Christine.
Yes.
From the public?
Oh, more from the public?
Moi aussi. Hi.
Who's speaking?
It's Alan.
Alan.
Oh, Alan, how are you? Sorry.
Thank you. Good to see 20th Street. I believe 20th Street at the highway is coming back, which was a very busy rack, and also a major entrance into Chelsea Park. There was also one on 22nd Street, which is also a major walk and entrance into the park, but was removed because of the related project across the street. But I wanted to just raise another issue, a different issue besides the sites and the number of bikes, and that's maintenance on the bike racks. Prior to Lyft taking over, Citi Bank, I guess, or Citi Bike, whatever, whoever was running the show at that time, used to come and clean the bike racks as well as the bikes, but clean the bike racks. They used to be washed down, hosed down. That doesn't happen anymore. And now we're left to clean up around the bike racks. Folks in the neighborhoods, Parks Department on 22nd Street sometimes helps out. A lot of garbage accumulates. Bike riders have a habit, unfortunately, of leaving their stuff either in the bike on the little basket in the front, or just dropping stuff wherever it falls. So I was thinking perhaps a program maybe of installing trash cans that they could use as advertising, maybe coordinate with some of the block associations that have bike racks. We could maybe work something out where we could help out in replacing garbage bags, but the amount of garbage that accumulates, at least what I remember on 20th Street off of the highway, especially 22nd Street off of 10th Avenue, and going into some of the other areas is really disturbing, and it just adds to the garbage that we're all looking at. So if that's something we could maybe figure out, I think that's something you might want to also include in your letter.
Alan, I didn't catch the locations you were asking, 20th and the highway?
Well, I believe from the map, they're replacing, there was a large bike rack on 20th on the off the corner of the highway. They removed it for some reason, and they installed the bike rack on the other side of 10th by the hotel. So I think the map shows that that's being replaced, so that's a good thing. There was also a bike rack on 22nd Street that was removed to allow construction because they had to cut the street down when Related was putting up the building. So 22nd off the highway, 11, let's call it 11.
And so what are you saying? You want that back?
I think it's a perfect spot, you know.
Okay, all right. I just want to clarify. And then the cleaning, I think the idea of the trash can is great. And if we wanted to do some additional, more intense, that would be below 34 or everywhere, or where? Below.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to know what the protocol is. What is Lyft expected to do in terms of maintaining these bike racks? You know, what is part of the contract?
So
actually, they're required to visit twice a month for cleaning each station.
Well, I will say I have noticed them recently, so maybe someone got on their back about it, but for a long time there was nothing happening on it. So,
all right, so
I'll let you know.
Add that and mention that it needs
but perhaps maybe a trash can here and there alongside the bike racks would certainly help. You know.
Yeah, I said we'll pick.
If it's suitable.
We got that. So who make a resolution here?
I just have one more comment, Christine, and I'll make the resolution, is to please also note that, suggest that DOT talk to the Hudson River Park Advisory Council so they can have a conversation with the advisory council to the trust and consider the park on the whole, not just by district.
Yeah, we can include, that's a good suggestion. We can include that in the language that outlines an approach to the park is broadly, and then get into specific recommendations in the meantime.
Would it also be appropriate to put in, increase the percentage of electric bikes, or you think we ought to wait for another time? I'll go with whatever the committee feels.
I think it's off topic. It's
okay.
Not on topic.
Okay, so Jeffrey, you promised to make
I will. I wrap all of those excellent locations, as well as thanks for the new stuff and recommendations to move forward, into a motion.
Second.
Second.
Who is in favor? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Present, non-eligible? And that's a wrap. Thank you so much. We're very excited about new stations. Keep them coming.
Thank you. Thank you again for your time. Have a great night.
All right. Okay. Take a deep breath. And we have the next guest or applicant is supposed to be Doordash, Dashmart, who is going to start a delivery site at West 25th Street. So Janine, they finally decided whether they were coming or not. You are in mute.
I'm sorry. They won't be presenting tonight, but they're welcome any feedback or anything that the committee has for tonight.
And do we have the representative of the delivery people?
Hildelin is on.
Okay. So let me just give a very quick summary before we get into that. So Doordash, who is that delivery organization, has just started a new business, which is called Dashmart. And this is similar to many other businesses, which are 15 minutes deliveries of your groceries. And typically what they do is they take a store, they obscure the front, the window, and they take deliveries online, and they hire delivery personnel to deliver in less than 15 minutes. And that new location of Doordash is going to be on 25th Street. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity to discuss this model and to discuss the issues of, bike parking, bike deliveries, etc. in this context. But because the applicant decided not to show up, we are going to formulate that mostly as questions. Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that, etc. Right? And prepare for a next meeting. But we have here the representative of the delivery workers, and I thought it would be a good idea to listen to what they have to say about this model, so we can hear from the experts. So Janine, can you bring them over? Oh, Hildelin is there.
Okay. Yes. She's on mute though.
Yeah, Hildeline, you have to remove your mute and hello? Does she know how to remove her mute?
I'm requesting her to unmute. I'm not sure.
She sees it. Okay, let me open my checklist. So I had prepared a very quick checklist. I'll tell you what. The first question is where, here is Hildeline. Hello, how are you? Okay.
How you doing?
Yes, so please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about this Doordash operation.
So my name is Hildeline Colón and I represent Los Telebristas Unidos, which is the organization, kind of like a group of workers, delivery workers that work for Uber, Doordash, Grubhub. We represent them across the 5 boroughs. There's 65,000 of them that work across the board. And I know you guys know in your neighborhood because I know we do have a big presence in Chelsea. And we represent them, for example, with DoorDash or the companies doesn't pay them when they get into an accident. Unfortunately, the reason that we're a bit late is because we did a vigil tonight for a worker that died 2 days ago on the job, actually making a delivery in 75th Street and First Avenue. Our workers are basic workers that I get paid for each delivery. For each delivery, they get approximately $2. So this is why you see them kind of like rushing back and forth. And what they make the life or break it for them is your tips. And that's what it is. I think, as you guys know, DoorDash and other companies are trying to experiment with this idea about giving them more benefits, which is not more benefits, it's basically paying the minimum what's in the city require. And that is like something that is happening. The reason is that this basically emerging industries, a lot of changes, right? Companies are buying each other. For example, Grubhub, if you guys that have not noticed, but Grubhub changed of color now. They used to be red, now they're orange. And the reason that they're orange is they were bought by a multinational company from Europe called Deliveroo. So now we have a European company in the New York City market. So we're in that very volatile kind of like time frame where everybody's buying each other, everybody's like experimenting. I think the challenge, what is common is it's on behalf of the workers, right? They're experimenting with people. And they're experimenting with their lives and their work. The people that I represent, as I said, they work for multiple apps at the same time. They work approximately between 10 to 12 hours a day, between 6 and 7 days a week. They actually use electric bikes, which is the New York City market. It's a heavy New York electric bikes to actually do these deliveries, and they get paid by delivery. DoorDash, as I said, is trying to implement this new system, copying from other companies that they're trying to guarantee you a delivery in 15 minutes, which I think all of us here that lives in the reality of New York City, you cannot get one from one train station to another in 15 minutes, not even in the subway, right? And that's not the reality. The challenge that we see when you put these guarantees is that the workers are triggered to work faster and to move faster. And that is a very dangerous situation, not only for pedestrians like you guys, for the people in the community, but for the workers themselves. And that is something. The challenge that we have is that if workers don't comply with that requirement, they can get deactivated or lose points or lose ratings because they're not doing it. So, when there is rain, when there is a hurricane that we have Ida recently, you guys remember that worker was a delivery worker from Grubhub with water up to here, delivering food in the middle of the whole hurricane. Why? Because companies pay them more. And that's what actually they're doing. So those new experiment, which is not very clearly how it's working because we have not enough time to see what it is, will trigger a higher amount of traffic in your neighborhood. And I know in a way, it depends on how much of the volume of delivery is. So you're gonna have two-sided delivery right now, which is part of the some of the frustrations as los deliveristas we have one delivery worker side by side that they've been treating very differently, but they're doing the same work. And we have to see how this actually impacts the workers and the community. That's a little bit of, I think if you guys have more questions for me or want to dig into more specifics, I will be more than glad to do it.
Thank you so much, Ilalin, for laying that out for us. I think many of us you have like the insider view. I think many of us have seen that this kind of competitive moment that we're in that industry with all these new pop-up companies with venture capital money, Gorilla, and I don't know who else is trying to claim this space. And it's like a mad dash to dominate the space.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've seen this, we're Americans, so we've seen this happen in many different industries. Hello, Amazon. But in this particular case, it has definite impacts on our purview, which is transportation planning, because this market grab that's happening is going to put us in danger. It's going to put you in danger and los deliveristas, and it's going to put the public in danger as well. So I really appreciate you being here and making that case in such a directly observed way.
I want to add something, Dale, because I think all of us in New York City, right, and I live on 135th Street and Broadway, right? I think what all of us have seen is that these apps have been in our cities for a long time. I have workers that have worked for Doordash for 5, 6, 7 years, right? They've been working for the apps when they were not the cool thing, right, to talk about. The challenge is that the city is late putting regulations and implementations and rules and getting people involved in this process. We went from having 2 or 3 bikes, regular delivery workers that work for restaurants, which was the common, right? To now having thousands of them in the street. And that is something that the city, unfortunately, until we didn't start screaming and yelling, we were able to pass 6 legislation about establishing a minimum, right? Right now, my workers don't even have a minimum payment, right? Right now, my workers are traveling from 6 miles in on a bike expected to be there in 30 minutes, right? Which cannot be. And I think that is what we're dealing with. Like the city's trying to catch up. There's going to be a new legislation will be implemented January 24th, which we at least will require some of these apps to come out to the surface. Because right now they're operating in the city, but we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I think we, by force, and the workers out on the street and they're fighting, have to at least get them out of the surface. And now the question is like, now that you're out of the surface, what is your responsibility with the workers? What is your responsibilities with the pedestrians? And what is your responsibility with the city? And I think we have forced that conversation, and that's what we're trying to have. And I appreciate that you guys are asking those questions. What's your responsibility with the pedestrians, with the workers, and with the city itself, right? And that is a big issue that we need to have a conversation about and we have to talk about.
Yeah, in the specific instance of the Doordash installation on 25th Street, we'll have our questions for them when they appear before us. But in the meantime, as a committee, obviously we don't create legislation, but we can make recommendations to the city council with respect to pedestrian transportation related issues. So again, I really appreciate your insight. It looks like Christine has dropped off because of a connectivity issue. She may be back soon, but I'm going to go to committee members for questions. Viren, did you have your hand up for this, or was it up from before?
No, for this.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of ground, and the points that you're making are extremely important. And like you also sort of made a point, which is, what can we do as transportation committee? And so my question, I think you probably answered the question, what are the labor laws and how do they work in this context? And which are the agencies that actually would be putting together this legislation and regulation, both in terms of coming up with the sort of actual regulation itself and then enforcement of it? Do you know anything about that? So then we can sort of make an informed decision about what we can do.
So I think it's 2 things, right? The reality is that the workers that right now I represent are independent contractors, right? So they're basically treated as independents. They're not workers. So this is why They don't have a minimum salary. This is why even they cannot use the restrooms. And one of the city laws that we passed, which, as I said, is a bit embarrassing that I'm actually saying this in 2021 in the middle of the pandemic. We passed a law to make sure that if they deliver for a company, they can actually use a restroom. This is what we are, sad to say, right? So these workers, and this is what we pass laws, right? The workers at DoorDash will try to implement or work for this Dasher market, which is what they call it, right? They will be treated as employees. And this is why DoorDash will try to say to you, well, we're paying them $15 an hour. We give them on the bike. Here's the thing. The minimum wage in New York City is $15 an hour. They're not giving them less than the minimum. The other thing as transportation committees, I think you guys know, there's the New York City regulation code 137 or 157, which require that every company should have to give them the tool of work to delivery workers. The idea that they come to you and say, well, we give them in the bike is the minimum that they have to do because they're mandated by law to give it to them. So it's not like they're doing something great. This is basically what basic necessity tools that these companies have to give them, right? Which I think I've been seen about they're doing this greatest thing and they give them a bike. That's not what it is. The rule is the rules, right? So I think what the challenge and what I see challenges that we need to now have two set of workers, right? That are actually being treated differently by a company, but then one have to obey certain rules in terms of what they provide, but the other workers doesn't, right? My workers, they basically, they have no protections at all. And that's part of the process. And that's what we do in legislation. When it comes to safety issue and transportation, I think we have a challenge because DOT have recently come forward and say the rule about giving bikes now applies to everybody, including the independent contractors. But you know that apps are going to take the city to court and they're already threatening that. That's the position that DOT have always. The app says if they're independent contractor, I don't have to give them a bathroom. Why I have to give them the bike? Why do I have to even pay them a minimum? That's their argument, right? So this is a very challenging situation. And then the rules are not very clear. We still a debate about what is what, like, do they have a permit? Like, at least, for example, bikes, at least we have been able to find it clear, but I still have officers giving tickets to workers when an electric e-bike is actually legal, right? So not even the NYPD even knows how to do this either. I am telling you, I used to work in the Manhattan DA's office for the last 10 years. I work in law enforcement and I have spoke to every precinct and nobody can tell me a straight answer about who needs to be registered, who doesn't need to be registered, right? And that is one of the big problems. And I think that's something that you guys have to bring them into to be like, DOT, what is the clear rule that all of us can explain and understand how this works?
This is another angle that's within our purview, right? Because obviously we can't specifically address labor laws, but we can say, this is how it impacts the health and safety of los deliveristas and the public at large, and also the enforcement. We can speak to the enforcement issues because it's inequitable enforcement within the transportation realm. I'm going to go to Brett. You had your hand up, right, Brett?
Just want to complete one point.
Viren, we're going to run out of time. I know this is a very in-depth discussion, but let's give other people a chance to speak. Brett?
Yeah, thank you. When I saw this in the agenda, there are three things I jotted down. Hidalin did hit on one of them, which is the pressure it puts on delivery workers when there's a 15-minute delivery window. From a transportation standpoint, for the community, that the big concern that I think we should all have is that's what's going to encourage someone to go the wrong way in a bike lane, to disregard the traffic signals. I think that's something from a legislative standpoint, the next round of legislation that comes out of City Council, we should have our reps, we should recommend to our reps that they need to somehow make time limits for deliveries not really not legal as part of their business in the name of public safety. We know there's already a market force pressure to have a quick delivery for the tips. But at least making it mandatory for a delivery person to have a limit, I think it doesn't work in favor of public safety. The second thing is when we have restaurant.
It's the most direct approach, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Brett, let me take that first. I think we have to. We recently passed a legislation, right, that says that workers can establish how far they're going to travel, right? And that is something that we want in the legislature. It will be actually starting in effect in April 24th. I think it's two approaches to that. Number one, the rules that were recently implemented, we have to make sure that happened and that the companies don't find a loophole to kind of like find a way to override them, which they're already trying to do that. But I think the compensation, which I know they're gonna now trying to do, will be like, well, it's just 1 mile radius. Yeah, but the challenge is that you have 1 mile radius and that workers have to complete 3 and 5 deliveries in the same route. So the pressure, like I think you guys have seen it, an advertising of Grubhub saying, I will guarantee it, and have every person saying, I will guarantee it. The guarantee comes on who? It's going to come on the cost of the pedestrians or the workers. So I think the city also have to come forward and put a very clear policy and public policy across the board, because from one side, we say we want it faster and faster. But then for the other side, the companies say, well, I'm going to guarantee it. But on the other side, we have enforcement about kind of like some of the speeds and other things are not happening the right way. So I think we have to come on as a city as a whole and be like, what do we really value here, right? Is the guarantee, but the guarantee comes with a cost. And I think that is one of the challenges, and I think that's what we're trying to come up with, because it's a very complicated matter. You know, as I said, some of the rules, but let me keep going, sorry.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand. I know the legislation is complicated. There's always going to be forces and ways to try to get that right. The second thing is, just like we have requirement for deliveries, delivery personnel doing deliveries to restaurants to have identification on who they're delivering for. I think that's got to be an absolute requirement too. If someone is doing delivery for a company, if there's a violation, there's something going on, you know, someone getting taking a video of somebody deliberately breaking, traffic laws, that identification should be traceable back to the company that that person's employed, so that way there can be proper investigation for law enforcement or whoever needs to understand, why did this happen? Why was it deliveries? Is it unreasonable conditions that a restaurant, the delivery company is putting on the delivery force, or is it just a violation by the employee? So those are, I think, having the same requirement for these delivery companies should be consistent with what we already have for restaurants. And the third one, I think, is this is just another reason for us to be able to keep going back to NYPD and say we need to get more enforcement. There are more and more electric bikes in these bike lanes, more and more of them going the wrong way, more of them speeding, ignoring a lot of the traffic signals. And I think we just got to keep putting pressure on the city to get the enforcement. I know every time Christine asks a law enforcement representative how many summons, how many citations, how many tickets are given out for bicycle violations, the number is always like tiny. It's like virtually nothing. So I think this is just one more issue that we're dealing with that reminds us that we got to keep pushing and advocating for actual real enforcement for all transportation vehicles, including bicycles.
But I will tell you this, right? Because I think the challenge is that they always go to penalize the working people, right? And I think one of the big challenges that right now we have, there is a huge amount of illegal sales of mopeds and electrics. But these illegal stores are actually selling these things out in the open. Even the police know where they are, but they don't go and close them. That is a big problem.
I appreciate it. I think, but I mean, our purview as the committee is, we can be sympathetic to the workers who are also part of our community, but as a transportation committee, our priority is really transportation issues and especially transportation safety, regardless of who's at fault.
No, I agree, but that's something that we need to also crack down on the people that are selling some of this equipment.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to move this along because otherwise we'll be here all night. David.
Yeah, I just the just to add to that, I think, the idea of, NYPD enforcement is just, it's kind of a throwaway line. That's not the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem is changing the structure of the compensation of the riders. Being paid by delivery is it's never going to change if that's the compensation system. And any other discussion about any other solution about whether e-bikes are legal, whether shops are legal, whether NYPD is enforcing, it's not going to make any difference as long as the structure is pay per delivery. And until that changes, there is no solution. And that's where our efforts should be focused.
I agree. Dale, can I show quickly something to the committee so they can see it? Because I know one of the things that we've been doing is that people see the interface as a customer, but they don't see the interface what workers have. Can you see it?
Oh, are you screen sharing?
Yeah.
Can you send it to Janine? Do you have Janine's email?
Sure, I can.
I would really like to request that we continue moving this along.
Yeah. Janine will bring that up on the screen. While we're doing that, do we have any more questions from committee members or the public?
Yes, Mike and Brian. I'm transferring them over.
Okay.
Hello, Dale. Can you hear me?
I can. You're back.
Ah, perfect. This is on the phone though. I can't seem to connect. I missed a lot of the discussion, so I may be redundant, but I wanted to bring up 2 or 3 things. First, this 15 minutes thing seems completely unreasonable to me. Let's assume that in the store it takes 5 minutes to pick the items. Then, you are left with 10 minutes. And is the distance calculated with red lights? Is electric bike required? I don't know whether the demands on the delivery people is reasonable and viable, and whether the commitment made to the customer is reasonable. So that's one thing. Then there is a question of, does the delivery people have to comply with the delivery cyclist guidelines, the bell, the placards, provide the equipment, verify the equipment, and give them an education on the rules of the road. And then there is an issue of, do they have, where do they put those bikes? When you have a whole group of people waiting for getting the next delivery, are the bikes in the parking lane, or where are they? And the delivery people, are they do they have a bathroom? Do they have a warm room to stop there, to be treated humanly? So these are my questions to Doordash about whether, this proposal makes any sense. Oh, and the front of the store, which is covered, I think we should insist that the stores are not covered by newspaper or brown paper, and allow people to shop there. So, it would be like Amazon, where you can go shop and they deliver,
Yeah, I think a lot of those points had been discussed, not the dark store effect, which I do think has transportation impact, since it impacts the safety of the pedestrian passageway. I think it's been super helpful and informative to have Idalin here, and we as a committee need to formulate the questions for when the folks at Doordash appears. I know there are a couple of questions from the public, and then I think we should wrap this because we still have another issue on the agenda. Brian.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so a very important and challenging problem, and a lot of smart things have been said about it, so I won't go there. But just my thanks to everybody for all their good thoughts. I realize because they're not presenting, you're not speaking directly to this Dashmart in particular tonight, but can you tell me, do you know what the proposed location is? And I'm asking specifically because Of course, on West 25th between 7th and 8th, we have a pretty extensive bicycle delivery operation out of Whole Foods. And if it's going to pile on top, I mean, already a lot of those bicycles, you know, I regularly see them, for example, taking one of those big cargo bikes going the wrong way up 25th Street to 7th Avenue, then the wrong way up 7th Avenue to 24th Street. So if this is going to be anywhere near that geographically, that's just an added complication that you need to address.
We don't know.
Oh, we don't know.
Don't have the precise address?
No, I don't have the address. I was not able to get it.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dale.
No, I think it's in the general vicinity, but we don't know exactly where. Thank you for the question, Brian. And then,
okay, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another person on the line?
Mike Noble had his hand up.
Mike?
Yeah, hi. Look, I tried to discover the location of this place too. You can't do it. It just ain't there. But my understanding is that they're going to pay these folks, they're hiring them as employees. Is that right, Hildeline? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's a good point. But and they're talking about 25 hours.
Not all of them. Not all of them, though.
Oh yes, all of them. All of them.
No, not all of them. I'm not sure about that.
I'm only going by what was publicly made available by Doordash, Dashmart. Okay. All employees. Okay. So anyway, irrespective of that, I can tell you this. I have used these apps, and there's one called Fridge No More, Hildeline, you might know, okay, which happens to be at the end of my block. And I can tell you, I put the thing on the app and the guy's knocking on my door. It was unbelievable. And I'm speaking up because Gail Brewer made a comment in our meeting a couple of weeks ago about who needs an apple in 15 minutes, that kind of thing. Well, it's not that. It's not the apple. We're not stealing from the bodegas and grocery stores. These are things that you forgot about. You're cooking dinner, and oh my God, let's just do this. So it works. I'm in favor of this thing. But I also want Hildeline and her folks to know that they've got to look out for themselves. I always, when these people come from these things, I give them about as much as what I pay for the food, okay? Invariably. It is a 100% tip because I know that you're getting cheated one way or another. You work hard. It is an incredibly new business model we're looking at. And I just hope that you give your folks training insofar as how you do your job. Okay, don't risk your life, don't endanger the public, that sort of thing. So as much as you have to go out and look out for how you're getting paid and all that stuff, you got to give them some responsibility. We don't want to see them hurting themselves or other people. And I hope you don't get cheated out of your fee if you don't make it on time. Do you?
Yes, you do.
You and do. Well, see that's.
And if you, so I think so. You know, Dale, I leave it with you so you can show it to the committee what that looks like. What they're gonna show you is they get graded based on time and arrival. So if they get there late, they start actually getting points less. So their ability to go back to work, or actually, for example, to get shift, or even to get the ability to good deliveries will depend on how fast they go. That's how the algorithm works.
Yeah, well, when Domino used to have this 30-minute guarantee, last word. Domino had to get rid of their 30-minute. Are you cutting me off there now?
I would just appreciate if you wrapped it up because it's been going on for time. We've taken a lot of Hilaline's time, and we're trying to keep it germane to transportation.
Good. Well, my comment is, back when Domino had this 30-minute delivery guarantee, all right, they had to give it up because it proved to be too dangerous. And I dare say that it's going to happen here too. Somebody's going to put the brakes on this thing. You cannot promote speed in a city full of pedestrians. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks. Okay, Ilaline, I really appreciate, Janine, do you have what Ilaline emailed you?
Yes, I do. Let me put it.
Can you screen share it just so everybody can see it? And I think we're gonna, as a committee, we're going to, I encourage everyone on the committee to develop some questions for the Doordash people when they do come to us based on this discussion, and we will give them a proper grilling when they get here.
But I think we should send a letter to them with the questions.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll.
Right, so we'll take all the questions of everybody and make a letter that will go there.
About the business model, the questions about safety, the questions about
everything.
Yeah.
One thing that I will leave, and Dale, like, feel free to call me, text me, whatever you need. I will definitely be available for the committee. I think one good point is that where these bikes are going to be safe, because taking sidewalk space should not be. That's something that we fight with our workers, right? They have to be maintained at the location, but if they're cargo bikes, they're much bigger, they take more space. And I will raise that the gentleman that asked about the location, that's a great point. We know the corridor between 23rd Street, 24th Street is very packed. There's a lot of commercial area. We need to figure out how this is going to work, because that area is already congested by default. So
I think we are wrapping up. I think we heard that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you feel free to forward anything else that you want to Janine, and we'll share it with the committee.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you want to have a letter going out to the Doordash people beforehand rather than wait for them to come to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion?
There, just one quick question. Is there any letter going from us to the city agency?
Which
no,
city?
It would go to Doordash only.
Yeah, no, but in terms of regulation, in terms of safety, both ways for pedestrians as well as the delivery workers, should we write something?
I have a suggestion in that regard, Viren.
Okay.
Like, let's get the information, let's get the questions out to Doordash, see how they address it, and then there's going to be like a new city council in January, so perhaps we can address this to our city council member come January as a more comprehensive ask, rather than like, listen, we had this interaction with Doordash, all of these other companies are coming online. It's going to be a systemic problem. We would like city council to address in the following ways.
Sounds good. The only reason why I mentioned that, Dale, is because I think Hudson mentioned that legislation is being passed as we speak and might be coming out in January. I think
it's already been passed, if I understand correctly, and it's coming online in January.
Oh, I see.
So a new city council will convene in January, and we can address our broad concerns to them, having gleaned some information from the Doordash experience. That's my suggestion.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we'll have a letter. Do we have a vote there?
Do we have a motion for a letter to the Doordash people? Thank you, Letty. To the Doordash people, raising all of the concerns that were put out there in terms of pedestrian safety, delivery worker safety, compliance with street regs, and what have you.
Yeah.
So moved.
So that's a second.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of a letter to the
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Christine, do you want me to take 53rd, or you want to jump back in?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
Moving on to the next committee, to the next issue on the agenda, we are looking at change of some regs to the parking along West 53rd Street between 10th and 11th. We were contacted by a resident of West 53rd Street who's with us tonight, Newton. Thank you for waiting through this, our big meeting. And we did a site visit, and Colleen was there, and we looked at the current regs, and I have a list of the current regs along the south side excuse me, of West 53rd Street on that block. And the larger issue is that there's not a whole lot of parking because a lot of the parking regs are designated for police only because there's the mounted precincts.
Mounted units.
The
mounted units, right.
And also there's just simply a lot of no parking regs on the block. So looking at the block along the south side of the street in front of 510 West 53rd, the current reg is no parking except Sunday. And on the stretch between 524 to 556, also on the south side, the current reg is no parking at all. So we did an assessment and we're looking at changing that reg to the standard time frame of street parking from, what is it, 8 to 6 or 9 to 6, with the exceptions of street cleaning rules. Okay, so Newton, did you want to jump in and address the need that's on the street?
In addition to making space for more parking, there also was the consideration of creating some curb space for an emergency vehicle, which with more parking on the street would be allowable. We understand that a curb cut that exists for the Key Park, that's going to be closed up, and that could possibly be a space. But overall, for the tenants and the nearly 2,000 units of housing that we have here condensed around this block, we'd like a regulation that allows for livability as opposed to the commercial aspect of what Mercedes enjoys with their Muni meters for their buildings. So to say all of that, to say on a Saturday morning, if it is indeed going to be, as you said, alternate side, if one were to move their car, there would be literally no place else to put it. So we'd just like to have clarity on, are we then to double park if it is to be alternate side, or would we just eliminate the weekend segment in the ordinance so that it's a little bit more amenable to residential? Because now it's continuous throughout the weekends, and our block is blitzed by traffic, as I've said in the previous meeting.
I don't understand. I'm sorry. I'm very confused by the question.
Okay, so if we're currently an unenforced block where we don't alternate our cars or park doubly to allow for street cleaning. So in the change of the ordinance, if that too were to change with the operation of the mounted unit, and they do require ample space on the north side of the block from the precinct all the way back to 11th Avenue, we just want to be clear that, we have space to either double park, which is common throughout the boroughs, or because there really is no other parking outside if we have to move to allow for, say, a street sweeper. It's an unenforced block. We don't have a street sweeper currently. And on the weekends, we just
wait. You are bringing everything in the table. And if you have an alternate side parking, that means 2 hours a day. During those days, you have to remove your cars, which typically people go around the block or double park. That's what they do everywhere in the city.
And it's normally like Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
Well, it depends the streets, but whichever day it is, this is what it is. That's all.
Maybe we can get Colleen in here about the what the reg would change to. Is Colleen still with us?
I don't think she is.
Oh, she left.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, but alternate is the thing that gives you the most flexibility as residents. It allows you to park the whole day as residents. That's
Agreed.
It. There is
Agreed.
no other regulation that is going to be better than that.
Understood, but we just would like for it to be minimally invasive so that the operation of the street with our neighbors at the mounted could still occur. Because
I don't know. We are not dealing with the mounted and your neighbors. We're just dealing with what is in front of your building.
Okay. So in front of our building, I did hear you say that double parking is allowed with alternate, and then that would suffice in our case.
I'm just saying everybody does it. I'm not saying that it's sanctioned.
But
okay.
I mean, what we're proposing is something pretty straightforward. On the south side of the street, it currently says no parking at all. And maybe it's not enforced, but you said there was some enforcement. And we're changing that to allowing parking.
No, and that part is absolutely welcome and appreciated. What I said happens is on the weekends, even though this is supposedly an unenforced block, the traffic department.
Oh, I see. You're getting enforcement on the weekend.
Yeah, including even police vehicles. It's a bit absurd with.
Well, if the parking reg changed, that would obviate that, because you'd be allowed to park there on the weekend.
Right. If it extended to weekends and had such clarity. So
it is on weekend. It's all the time.
Right. And that's the point I wanted to underscore, that it needed to
of 2 hours twice a week.
Okay.
Street cleaning.
Okay, we're on the same page. Thank you.
Okay, now I understand what you were getting at with the enforcement. The enforcement wasn't happening during street cleaning. It's just happening on the weekend when there were more traffic.
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. So do we have
I think we can make a resolution, right?
Yeah.
Can I add something to that resolution?
Sorry?
Can I add something to the resolution for those regs? Yeah. I think it's critically important. I live on this block also. I'm at 554 West 53rd. I want to register my severe objection to making any additional space for residential parking in Manhattan. And it's a policy this board has long upheld. But since there's some consideration being made here, I think another consideration that needs to be made is a neighborhood loading zone. Moving trucks regularly block the block, entirely. It's 53rd Street is not a through block. It ends at 11th Avenue because of DeWitt Clinton Park. I've been pushing for better signage about 53rd Street for as long as I've lived on that block. It's not a through street. So if we're going to consider round the clock residential parking, I feel strongly that, as what we've done elsewhere in the city, we need to ask for a neighborhood loading zone here for moving trucks, for Amazon deliveries, FedEx, UPS, the whole nine. That should be folded into any mix we ask when we're changing parking regulations.
That makes a lot of sense.
All right. Did somebody else have a hand up in the committee about this 53rd Street? Tina.
Yeah, I was just going to say very quickly, we should take, just for correcting the record, double parking off the table, only because it is against New York City law and it's a $115 ticket. So we should just understand that.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's endorsing.
I just didn't want anybody to depend on that to create a resolution.
Yeah, no, that's not going in the resolution. The resolution is a request for a reg change of the curbside from no parking to parking, some mix of parking and loading zone now.
Great.
Brett, do you have your hand up for this?
I did, yeah, and I think that was my question. I was just trying to get clarity because the conversation was all over the place. I wasn't quite sure what the issue was, but I will just say that I'm not sure, I don't remember voting on a policy that we don't add residential parking. I think sometimes we consider it, so I think that's just, we have to take it on a case-by-case basis. But I do agree with Jeffrey that if we're going to be looking at residential parking on a block that doesn't have adequate standing for delivery, that is something that we should be advocating for, because double parking is probably one of the single most dangerous things that our bicyclists face on any street.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Was that Rob?
Sorry about that. No, I raised my hand earlier.
Oh, okay. All right. Do we have any questions on this from any members of the public? Seeing no questions from the other committee members.
No, I don't see any more hands up.
Okay. So we can take a vote on a letter to DOT to, we'll outline the specific configuration, but changing regs that are currently no parking to parking and some combination of parking and loading, neighborhood loading zone along the south side only of West 53rd Street. We're not touching the north side because it's pretty much the purview of the precinct.
Oh, and briefly, there is a section for our neighbors in the precinct. There is a section where
No, you are not. I'm sorry. This is the business section now.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
I make
So
the
do we have
motion of what Dale just outlined.
So we have a second.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay. All right. Newton, I'm sorry about that. We were in committee.
Right. Didn't want to.
In the midst of committee business. So, but I think we're gonna start with the south side only because it's the simpler approach at this moment and make some progress in that direction. And then if there's more, we'll take it from there.
Figure it out. Great.
Thank you so much, Newton.
Thank you all. Thank you, Janine. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Is there another agenda item?
Yes, sanitation, DSNY snow plan.
Ah, yes. Okay. Do
Yeah.
you want to lead this, Christine? Because I'm a little hoarse and
Yeah,
a little.
I'll do that. Hopefully you have read the document that was in the folder. And what this document does is summarize what, first of all, what DSNY as sanitation has responded to us about 3 months ago, and what they just published to as their plan. And if I may summarize, essentially they are saying, well, we do all the road and then we hire laborer to do the corners and the pedestrians. And the purpose of all the question is to say, do we have parity between pedestrians, bus stops, corners, bike lanes, and roadway? And can we get all of those to be done at the same time as they are doing the roadway, so that we can have a much better experience for bus stop, for corners, and for bike lanes. And it doesn't wait until 4 days later to get done. So that's essentially the point of all the questions. And the questions are very specific because the plan is very specific. And what I would like to do is take those questions and put them in the letter and say, well, thank you for your letter 3 months ago. Thank you for the plan that you have published, but we have a bunch of questions to clarify how you're approaching that, considering that we have so many, 8 million pedestrians and maybe only 2 million or 3 million drivers. And therefore, should the approach, operational approach, be adjusted to this new reality?
I think we do need an operational approach that is different, because it takes far too long for curb cuts and bus stations to be cleared.
And bike lanes.
And bike lanes in our district.
Right. And so there is a whole bunch of questions about, do we have, then it goes into the detail. Do you have enough, how many machines do you have? Because they say they have so many machines, but how many machines are in our neighborhood, etc. So that's essentially these are the details behind this conceptual question we want to pose. And the reason it's important is I understand that Eric Butcher is very intense on sanitation. And so if we do this now and have the letter at the beginning of next year, we can immediately turn to Eric and say, okay, can you help us with that? And I'm sure he's going to be very open to help with that. Any questions?
I would move all that into a bundle for a letter.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Present non-eligible? Okay, that's it. I know Sarah wanted to talk about sidewalk sheds, but maybe it's a little late, right?
Yeah, and I
Sarah?
mean, I don't think it's going to be too long. And if you decide that we can defer it once you hear the one thing I was mainly going to just follow up on, then that's fine.
Okay.
It is very late. But it was basically just, I know we sent our last letter to a bunch of electeds, right? I think it was in July. Finally heard back from DOB on some of our questions, like late August or September it was. And just wanted it to discuss with you, Christine Dale, others of the committee, whether another follow-up to DOB was in order, particularly because we've discussed some like design changes that I think DOB could just make rule changes on. And so that topic in particular, kind of subtopic, I was thinking might be worth following up with them on and trying to push that way. But we can also talk about this.
Okay,
in
so
January
it's
if folks are exhausted.
nothing new. It's nothing new, but we are just sending
It's a
a
follow-up.
reminder and say, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's a
follow-up.
follow-up and like a little bit more pushy probably, because we kind of floated this as questions to them and they never actually explicitly responded to that particular design question we had for them. So it'd be kind of a follow-up on that in particular.
Okay.
That sounds good with me,
Yeah.
right?
So like a little bit of a poke.
Okay.
Thank you for the meeting. We would love to see more movement on this particular design issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and we could maybe weave in a couple other questions if we want to. Like for instance, Christine, like we could even just say, as an FY, we put in this budget request for your longstanding sheds program. We really love to see that expand, down to 1 year plus. Like there's a couple other things we could draw them on.
Maybe say thank you for whatever success stories we've had, because there have been a couple.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's good also, Sarah, because you may not know, but Assemblymember Rosenthal is starting to work on this subject from a different angle, but still it's that subject. So
exactly. And Erica and I are going to chat next week.
The more letters we have, the more it gives her, ammunition. At the same time, the more she may be pushing for our issues.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so let's vote on that.
We have a proposal for a letter to DOB regarding shed, kind of follow-up letter. Is that a motion? Do we have a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are going to solve this problem.
Right. Well, thank you so much, and I want to wish everybody a happy holidays. But you are such a great team.
Thank you for sticking with us. That was a little messy and complicated, but it got done.
Yeah, it was really. Okay, all right.
Also, it's my last
Good
transportation
night.
committee meeting, so thank you, everybody.
Oh
I'll
my
see you in
God.
January in the chair.
I guess we won't be seeing you around much anymore.
No, I'll have so much free time. I'll have nothing to do.
Yeah, you'll probably be at the park.
Jeffrey,
pounds.
thank you for all the good work. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Jeffrey.
Bye, everyone.